Hi, everybody. It's Lori and Lawrence back again for another This Week in Flat Earth. And Lawrence looks like he's got a little experiment for us this week. So I would, see, it looks like he's got some melons there that he's going to do something with. So anyway, welcome everybody, and glad you're with us. And we have some drop-ins coming in just a little while. Ned Kelly is in Australia, and it's 7 o'clock in the morning there. It's 5 o'clock in the evening in Florida, USA. And what time is it there, Lawrence?
It's just after 10 p.m.
Just after 10 p.m. And then we're going to have Scott Price also join us from Canada in a little while. He's doing a family engagement at the moment, so he's going to be joining up with us shortly. So thanks for coming back and joining us again. And we're going to talk about curvature. And we've been talking about it for a few weeks now. We have moved on from mapping, since we feel pretty confident that we've gone about as far as we can go with that right now. And from week to week, when we're on Facebook or on YouTube answering comment questions and so on and so forth, we're constantly still seeing this debunked flat earth map, they call it, which is not the flat earth map, but they call it that anyway. And it's actually the azimuthal equidistant map. And we still argue with people and fuss and fight, because we feel very confident that that is not a representation of the flat earth plane realm. But for those who do still think so, we invite you to go back and dig in our older videos. We've been doing these shows now for, 8 or 9 months now, Lawrence?
Last October, I think.
Yeah. So the best way to go about doing that is to actually click on the homepage of this channel, Flat Earth Conspiracy Channel, and scroll down and find some of the older videos. Most of them have somewhat of a title as to what they're about. Most of them are anywhere from 2 to 3 hours long, and you can put them in fast speed if you'd like to listen to them quicker. You can also go to iTunes and download the podcast version, which is I think every show has been converted to an MP3 podcast. And so, go and listen to that while you're working or while you're doing your chores around the house or whatever. So last few weeks, we've been talking about the perceived curvature of the Earth. And for a long time, since I've been involved in Flat Earth, there's been a formula that's been accepted by the Flat Earth community as the curvature formula. And it goes like this. It's supposedly 8 inches per mile squared. So you would take the miles that you're trying to measure, sight distance or otherwise, and you would square those miles. If it was 4 miles, it would be 4 times 4 times 8 inches. And that gives you how many inches you're supposed to be able to have for curvature, observable curvature. And to get how many feet that would be, obviously you would divide that by 12 inches. And if you had a good enough distance, you would divide that by miles. And so the last week I posted a picture. It's the first time I've seen this. There is a world record for the longest distance of a photograph taken, and it's something like 237 miles. I forgot to write it down, so I'm just pulling that number out of my memory, but it's the longest photograph of distance, and then from a mountain to a mountain, obviously. And it's from, I believe, south of France across to one of the Alps. Can't remember. You'll have to look it up. But anyway, the idea is that for curvature, we're expected to look for 8 inches per mile squared. Lawrence has begun questioning that formula, and he has come to the conclusion that it is not the proper formula for what would be expected to be the curvature and the fall in elevation on a globe. So having said all that, I think I've set him up pretty good. Lawrence, what do you got?
Well, before I do the experiments, I was up in the Lake District a few days ago. There's a place called Hard Knot Pass, which has got some of the steepest inclines in Britain. It's only a 1-minute video, so I'm just going to show people that, just to give them an indication of if we really lived on a spinning ball. These are the sort of elevations that you'd find at the top of the globe in northern Greenland. Everywhere else, like where you live and where I live, would be considerably steeper. So let's just take a quick look at this. It's only a minute. Let me find it. There we go. It will be on in a minute. Fellow flat earthers, I'm here in the Lake District, seeking out the steepest roads in Britain. Imagine these are quite gentle for the area. There are some steeper roads, but to find roads this gentle on a globe, you'd have to go as far north as the far north of Greenland. If you were down in England, the roads would be half as steep again, and it's a bit of a fun. If you were in Florida, for example, then the roads would be twice as steep as this little bit here. So you can imagine getting from A to B would be very difficult. However, where you live, the chances are that you are not driving on roads this steep, and it makes it impossible to be actually living on a sphere. Now, it's quite a little tricky one to get round. This is the land of the mountain goat. So, anyway, when I get back, I'm going to do a little demonstration of how a man would really need to live on a sphere, because things like this, the most accessible places on the globe, then you just imagine what it's going to be like down at the equator. It would be like those sheer cliffs over there. Over and out. Catch you later. There we are. We're back on now. Right. Stop the sharing. There we go. There we are. We're back on, Laurie?
Yep.
We're still here? Right. So anyway, yeah, so that's what it's like. You've got to ask yourself, let me just move this chair out of the way. To move all the furniture around just a minute. There we go. So you've got to ask yourself, come on, folks, we are told we live on something this shape. Sorry, you can't see me there. Something this shape, and we live somewhere on it. Yeah, we don't live on something that, you know, is in the predominantly flat with a gentle curve. If we were on it, we'd have some very severe slopes. The curves would be gentle, but the slopes would be severe. It's quite interesting, actually, that when they do all these experiments on curvature, they always have a fall in elevation, like, you know, the Bedford level experiment. Fall in elevation. Well, if you went the other way, it would be a rise in elevation. But I've just said that I've got 2 step ladders here, big one and a small one, and I've stuck a plank of wood between them. And this is the elevation that you would find only in the most northern parts of a globe. So I'll try and stand on without breaking your neck. And you can see me there, so I'm sort of stood at an angle. And this is what you'd be on all day long. You know, you'd be stood at a stupid angle. You get very big calf muscles walking up the hills, you know, and downhills would be a piece of cake. But you need good brakes for your car or for, you know, for your bicycle, if that's what you're on. So, Laurie, I've got some little melons here. This is just a little experiment I thought I would do. So, can you see your name on there?
Yeah, Laurie's globe.
Okay, that's Laurie's globe. So the question is, we don't live on the globe, folks. No, you can't see me there. We don't live on the globe, but this is like, if you go in a fruit and veg shop, this is the nearest thing you can get, the roundest thing, apart from a little orange or something, with a similar sort of shape to the theoretical globe. So here's your globe, Laurie's globe. And I want you to tell me where on this globe you're going to choose to live. Whereabouts?
I probably would want to live on the top.
You want to live right on the top? There.
Right.
The marker pen on the top. You're going to live there.
Right.
Okay. So.
Because the rest of that looks pretty slopey.
You've been on a diet and you're a bit thin now, so that's you on the top.
Okay.
Okay, so the only problem you've got there is keeping warm. So let's assume it was too cold for you to live there. Where would you live?
Well, I'd want to go where it's warmer, so I'd probably want to move to Florida.
Oh dear. Okay, Florida. So what's that, about 27 north?
Yes, 27 north.
Okay.
Latitude.
Well, that's about there, say. We'll say that black line is roughly where you are. That line there. So we're going to stick a little toothpick in that line there, perpendicular to the centre, which is what they say. Okay. So there we go. There's the centre. So you would be approximately that sort of angle. Oops. Broke it. So you'd be at that sort of angle for your day-to-day life. It's pretty steep and you'd struggle to do anything. You know, you might be able to grow some grapes on the hills like they do in France. They have some very steep grape slopes. If you go around the Champagne areas of France in Epernay, they have these slopes that go, you know, up the mountainside. So if you're going to live there...
You'd have to do some serious terracing.
You would, yeah, you would. So, all right. Let's assume that you want to live where the sunshine is, but the land it's too steep to live on. The angle's over 60 degrees. You know, you'd be living on a 60-degree slope. You couldn't really live there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you all the finest excavation equipment in the world, and you can actually go down 8 miles on this ball to excavate out some flatland if you want to. So is that what you'd like to do?
Well, I guess so. I mean, you know, if you want to have a easier time getting around and standing up and doing stuff, I would think you would have to try to find some kind of a plane surface.
Well, let's just take the edge off the top of that. There we go. So I can't even cut through that bit there. It's quite a thick melon. So, all right. So what you'd need to do to actually live on a globe, you'd need to excavate down to 8 miles. This isn't to scale. And cut some of the land out. I don't know where you'd put the soil, but you could cut some land out. Yeah.
Well,
and then the sunshine.
You just let it go and it would just fall off, wouldn't it?
Well, depends on gravity, doesn't it? So anyway, so you've cut out this little section there. Okay, so now you've got somewhere you can stand up on, and the sun can hit you, you know, and ripen the plants and keep you warm, and you can build some houses, but everything's going to be like 8 miles in maximum. Problem is when you go down 8 miles, it gets very hot, so you probably live right on the edge. So on this world, there would definitely be an edge, and when you got to the end of this edge, it would be, not far off a sheer drop where you live. It'd be very steep anyway, and you won't want to go looking over the edge of it. So that's what it's like on a sphere. But going back to my other experiment, here we are. There's my organic melon. That's the one I've chosen to live on. My organic ball. It's all in slow motion on here. So all I've done on this one, I have painted on, I've drawn on with a marker pen. We've got the equator, which is the lower line, and the black line above it is 45 degrees, which is halfway. So when you get to the top, that's 90 degrees north, 45 degrees north, and 0 degrees. So people say that the curvature is the same everywhere on a ball. The actual amount of curvature may well be the same, but the falling elevation isn't. So we're actually going to prove it now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a top slice of this earth and stick it on this little chopping board over here, and then take the second slice and put them next to each other, and then you'll be able to see the difference in the falling elevation over the top slice of the earth compared to the next slice, which is the same amount of distance. So the distance from that toothpick to that toothpick is the same as that to that, but the amount they go down is different. I'm going to prove that now. So I'll get my chopping board out. It's like a cookery lesson, this, isn't it? Yeah. And then later we can eat the evidence. So I'll try and chop through this and keep my knife parallel to this line. There we go. Keeping it nice and parallel.
We can't see.
Oh, where's it gone? Where's the camera? There we go. There we go. I'm slicing free. There we go. Right. Just there we go. There we go. So we're slicing through the top of the earth to see the comparative fall in elevation between the first quarter and the second quarter. So I'm just carefully slicing through this. There's no seeds at this point, so I don't have to worry about them dropping out. So there we go. Can you see that on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first slice. And here's the second slice coming up. Yeah, cutting in a straight line was never my forte.
You could have gotten a riper melon. That one looks like it's fighting back pretty good.
All right. Anyway, so that's the second slice. Yeah, so I don't know whether we can pick those up there. Can you see those comparative sizes?
Yeah.
Not really.
If you hold the camera still.
Yeah. That's the first slice.
Okay.
And that's the second slice. The distance from that line there to the edge is the same as that line there to that edge. But if you live there on a ball, then the lay of the land would be much shallower than if you lived in this part. And this is the shallowest part, Sorry, this is the shallowest part, and this is the steepest part.
Okay, show us with some kind of measurement, a piece of string or whatever you got laying around there, that those two distances from the center on your black lines, that they are indeed the same or close to the same for a melon.
Well, there we go. So it's from the middle. So I'll take the top off because that's where it's gone from. So it's that black line there compared to that black line there. Can you see that? The two black lines?
Hold your camera down just a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nearest, damn it, they're the same length. But when you put that flat to the ground, you can see there's an awful lot more fall in elevation if you live there. So any calculations as to the amount of curvature or fall in elevation on a flat earth has to take into account the latitude that you're at. That's from 45 to 90, and that one is from 45 to 0, so it's the same distance, but a huge difference in the fall in elevation. So on the top, on there, you could probably live on that, right on the top in the center, if you got some warm clothes. So that proves conclusively that you have to take into account where on the ball you live before you calculate the elevation. And then you have to take into account which direction you're facing, because if you're facing north, then it's going to be going upwards, and if you're going south, it's going to be going downwards. If you're going sideways on the ball, then everything's going to be skew whiff like me over here. I'll be like this. Where's that gone? My two ladders. There we go. That's the two ladders over there. And I would have to go to somewhere like this, you know, and stand like this all day, you know, and walk up all day and build up my calf muscles, you know, get very fit. You know,
well,
we would
Lawrence,
get
actually,
very agile.
so all these weeks that you've been talking about this, I think you did an excellent job explaining elevation on a globe. And it seems pretty conclusive to me that if we lived on a globe, we'd know it, right?
We would. I'm just going to take this plank down now because I can't sit down with this big plank in the way. Oops. Let's put it over there. So.
Thank you, Lawrence, for going to all that effort to show us what you've been trying to explain, because that makes a lot more sense now for those who, you know, thought that no way, that's crazy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. Lawrence has gone off the deep end this time, blah, blah, blah. And I think
anyway,
for those who need a visual explanation for what it is that we've been talking about, curvature, spherical curvature versus elevation, now should be able, the curvature is the same. It would be 8 inches per mile if you are only measuring the curvature and it was just a perfectly spherical ball. Now, a lot of people argue, well, that curvature formula sort of falls apart after about 1,000 miles. Well, this is a very good reason why, because on a globe that's supposed to be 25,000 miles in circumference at the equator, give or take a few miles difference because of this oblate spheroid BS. If in fact you lived on a globe, you would know it by where you live on the globe, and everybody would be piled up on the top, and so that it would be easier to live. Or, like Lawrence showed earlier, we would have had to have carved out some terraced locations, and we would live basically on a step planet so that we could move about easier. All the road, we wouldn't have roads. We'd have, everything would be pretty much a switchback, which is how you go up a mountain. Or we would live where you just got off one elevator and walked over and got on another one and went up to the next level and the next level and the next level all the time. So there would definitely be more underground cities, and cities that would be built up against the side of a cliff that would be probably man-made. So I invite anybody who says that's rubbish, and I'm starting to speak like a Brit, and that wouldn't be possible or probable or realistic. Tell us why. Tell us why that doesn't make sense to you.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because what I had a look for, you can't see me there, I'll put my hand there so you know I'm here.
Right now all we see is your steaming cup of Earl Grey.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought I'd try and find a road or a simulation of a road that you would have to drive on down in darkest Florida. Oh. And I've got a little video.
Yeah, never mind anybody who lives south of the equator, right?
Well, I'm going to show you what your roads would be like. So, because I've found something. So just bear with me.
Does it include goats?
Not this one. No, I actually found one with a goat, which you might like, but I don't know. I can show you that one in a minute. But this is. I'm just going to wind this on a bit. So here we go. Let's make that full screen. Is that coming up?
Yes, sir.
Come out of sharing now.
Good point, though. You know, it makes a very good point. I mean, until people can wrap their minds around this, it's going to sound crazy. I mean, I've already had people say, you know, you guys are disinfo agents and whatever.
No, that's that sort of curvature wouldn't be far off what you'd have in Florida, because that was an angle of about 70 degrees on that slope. It wasn't sheer because the wheels wouldn't have touched it. They'd all been dangling away. So that's
Take
what.
the green chair off.
I don't know how to do it because I removed it. Can you undo it?
No, you haven't undone it.
All right, well,
or
I'll put
it would be gone. So
hang on.
there you go.
Hang on.
Okay.
Cancel. Can I cancel it? Yeah. Has that took it away?
Yes, Lawrence.
Bloody
You're getting
screen.
so good at this. I can't
Yeah.
believe
No.
it.
So if you lived in Florida on your piece of melon, Laurie, on your globe, you would need a winch just to go to the shops to take away your car. You know, so you'd be better just climbing up it and abseiling down with your groceries.
Maybe we'd have some people movers, like those little tracks you get on when you're at the airport that move you down through there a little bit faster than walking, but not much. Maybe we'd have some where you just harness yourself to it and it takes you to the shops.
Yeah, actually, I've got
the whole thing we're trying to prove here, people, for those of you who think this is wacky and insane, is if we lived on a globe, okay? And this is for flat earthers to be trying to wrap their minds around. There's no way you're going to get a globe head to even entertain this. But flat earthers also need to try to wrap their mind around the fact that if you lived on a globe the size of Earth, one of the things that they've intentionally done, and they keep promoting this idea, is how big Earth is. Okay, so when you understand that, 25,000 miles around is big, sure it is, but when you put it into perspective of a country the size of the United States, for example, that's roughly 3,000 miles across, then you can kind of start to think about, well, it's big, but it's not that big. I mean, that's big, but the reality is the elevation of the globe, because people are so used to having their mind set on everybody's sticking out perpendicular to the earth wherever they are, and gravity's holding everybody and everything on, and it doesn't matter if you're upside down, you don't feel upside down if you're in Australia or whatever. But the concept is that the globe, as explained to us, always has north, pointing north. I mean, okay, let's not quibble about whether we're talking about geographical north or magnetic north. Regardless, that's about 1,000 miles, give or take, between the two, okay? But north is always north and south is always down under. And nobody would be able to cling to the bottom of the earth. So if it was a globe. So that's what Lawrence is trying to, prompt people about.
So all the curvature experiments, is that piece of melon coming again?
Yeah.
All the ones that they've done, can you see that bit of melon again? There, that piece, yeah? All the curvature experiments assume that you're starting right in the middle of that and moving away, and obviously right at the top it's virtually flat. There will only be 8 inches in the first mile, and that's thoroughly misleading when most people don't actually live there. Apart from a few research stations, nobody lives there, so it's wholly misleading. Most people live, on this and on that bloody slope there, which is a lot steeper.
Yeah.
So actually,
most people do live on that, because 90% of the population lives in the northern hemisphere, according to statistics.
Yeah. Anyway, so just to see what you'd find it would be like to get about on a day-to-day basis, I've got another short clip here for you. So if you were going on foot, it would be like this. Let's have a look.
Where's this supposed to be, Lawrence?
This is a goat that's going to start climbing up very steep hills with a GoPro camera on it.
All right.
I said I'd bring some more goats back, didn't I?
Well, I figured sooner or later. of course, next thing you know, they'll say those people are Satan worshipers. They're got goats on their show every week. Oh God, I kill me. Okay, sorry. I need to put you back. Have any
Here we go. So yeah, he's going to. The goat will start doing something in a minute. There he goes. That's what he's trying to get down. How would you fancy that doing your shopping, Laurie?
Oh no, freaks me out.
Trip down to your.
Looking at it.
Trip down to your.
The goat got a GoPro camera on him.
Yeah, and he's going to go down that huge cliff face.
What a trip. Sorry, those of you listening on a podcast, you might just want to skip forward this. I could give you a play-by-play, but it's a goat going down the sheer face of the cliff because goats can. And he's got a little GoPro camera strapped around his neck. And so we're seeing the goat's eye view of
a globe, as it would be if
you lived somewhere around the center.
Yeah, and they won't be just isolated places; it would be everywhere, and
everywhere.
you would know about it. You wouldn't need experiments to prove that there was, a huge fall in elevation wherever you go. It would be so obvious.
So explain how gravity would counteract this if there were such a thing.
Well, even if gravity existed and it pinned you to the earth, you'd still be stuck out at a ridiculous angle and you'd know about it.
Because
if you were climbing up that,
in this case, density and is going to make that goat fall all the way to the bottom if he lost his footing, not gravity, because the goat weighs more than air. So it's still the same principle.
Yeah, but that's just, this is how it would really be. And I'm just so amazed that flat earthers, oh, look at that, taking a big jump there. It's amazing. But flat earthers, I'll stop sharing that now. This is the biggest proof by a mile in my book as to why we don't live on a sphere. It's just so obvious. There we are. We're back on.
Well, okay, so I'm checking to see if Ned has woken up yet. I think it says he's waking up now. So please get some coffee and so on before you come on, Ned, because we may be here for a while. Well, okay, so I think from week to week, people, there's going to be a few more people getting this. We're not the only ones talking about it. Who else have you watched some videos that they're coming up with the same idea about elevation, Lawrence?
Yes, Cesar's put one out.
Cesar,
about
right?
it.
I spoke with him.
And then Jeronisms and Bob have put another one out a few days ago, but they prat around with ridiculous numbers and stuff like that, whereas I can just keep it simple because it is simple, simple. And the curvature experiments are just not necessary if you lived on a bloody ball. It would be so obvious. You just couldn't live there, without,
Lawrence, angle your camera up just a little bit so we can talk to your face.
Oh, I'm over here now, yeah. There we go. Yeah, the curvature experiments are. So I've had it in the net from the people doing the Bedford level experiment. They did it last week, I think it was, and I was telling them that over 6 miles, they would be the best part of 4 mile fall in elevation over the 6 mile trip, not 24 feet, and they were just all attacking me as though I was a baller. But if you look where the UK is on the globe. They're around about the 45-degree mark, which is very steep. The UK is somewhere around about, I don't know, about there.
You can't put it in front of the camera. You keep forgetting camera and the
So
laptop.
if that was the top, that stick there sticking out would be where the UK is. Yeah. So upright is that way. Yeah. So if you were stood up there, you'd be stood out at best part of 45 degrees. And if you were doing the canal going downwards, the canal would be sloping at the best part of 45 degrees. So for every mile that you went, it's probably going to go, down, 2/3 of a mile or thereabouts. And you couldn't have canals. The only place you could have canals on a sphere would be where you could have things that were actually level. So it'd be on the top, the North Pole.
Or in one of those finely excavated 8 mile excavations that you talked about earlier. So
yeah, you could count. You could. You could. Is that Scott?
No, that's Ned.
Ned. That looks like Scott down there.
There you go.
He's down under.
You're down under, man.
His camera down under.
In Australia.
What did you?
How you doing, Ned? How's it going?
What am I doing? Oh, stuff.
There you go.
How's that? There you go.
Oh, that's perfect. It actually should be upside down, but because we just been talking about elevation and curvature and so on, and you come on with your camera sideways. Thought you planned it. I believe they call it serendipity, don't you, Lawrence? So Ned, how's things going down in Australia, mate?
Good. Not too bad. Not too bad, mate.
Let me give you, hold on, let me give you a little more volume here. You're not too loud. Okay, so we were just getting ready to move on to the ideas that we've been talking about and showing this week, also about the fact that the sun sure does seem to be rising and setting north of the Tropic of Cancer, because people are observing the sun rising and setting northeast and northwest of their location. One so far has reported that from Sweden, and one from Canada that I've spoken to. People in Northern California have reported the same thing. I have witnessed the same thing here in Florida. And according to everything we've ever learned our whole lives, the sun's most northerly trek across Earth is at the Tropic of Cancer, and the most southerly is at the Tropic of Capricorn. So during summer solstice, we're supposed to be able to see the sun where? Over the equator? No, we just did the Cancer. Yeah, right. We just did Cancer. Am I correct? So why is everybody seeing the sun so far north? And we also have had reports of people saying that they, in fact, have witnessed the sun 24 hours in the Arctic Circle or thereabouts, and we know that that's another true statement. And so, what do you think? What do you think about all this, Ned?
Well, I still don't think.
I need a little more volume for you, Ned, please. Go ahead.
I'm just looking at the volume line. How's that?
Good.
Better.
That better?
Yeah, righto. It's a complicated issue because just listening to you guys because I haven't really followed because I've been following the moon, but for the sun to be coming through from the north, I mean, we've got to be able to screw these continents around, don't we? I mean, as a rule, the sun comes up in the east, sets in the west. That's one again what Enoch says. So if that could be a guide to what the actual angle of the continent is.
Is everybody froze out? Ned's frozen out.
Yeah.
Well, while Ned's getting his channel back, I sent a compass to a chap who lives in Estonia, which is not far short of 60 degrees north, and he took his readings on the summer solstice, and the sun was rising at 30 degrees. So if you want to know where 30 degrees would be on a compass, it's if you compared it to a clock, it would be 5 past the hour, and the sun was setting at 3:10, which is about 8 minutes to the hour. So the sun was rising almost in the north and setting not far short of the north for somebody who's 60 degrees north. So, you know, the sun is only over the Tropic of Cancer. That isn't possible if it's the actual sun he's seeing. There must be some other effects coming into play. And the more I think about it, the more I think that we are three-dimensional beings living in a four-dimensional world, and we can't see these other dimensions, which, you know, makes all this stuff happen. There's got to be some other explanation.
Well, also, suddenly they're talking about that we have 2 moons. Also, suddenly we're understanding that, you know, Nibiru is back. So depending on where you are located on Earth, every single place seems to be having some kind of an anomaly right now and currently. I just saw a thing that NASA put out, NASA/NOAA put out this week. NOAA's the weather version of NASA. And they said that the jet stream has suddenly crossed the equator and below the equator blowing around. It's never done that before. So I don't know if this is their attempt to do some kind of reconfiguration so that they can explain global warming's not happening or something else is happening instead of global warming or whatever. But the idea is that what we're being told and what we're observing are not the same thing. And I'm totally down with what you're saying about 3D humans living in a 4D world or 5D, and not being able to understand or have the tech or the equipment or the senses to be able to understand and explain what it is we're seeing. And we only have our own lifetimes and a few lifetimes before us to be able to compare data and information and whatever, because we don't know what it was like. Let's say if you believe in flood, which I do, Noah's flood, we have no idea what the earth was like before then. We don't know what the earth was like during the Garden of Eden times and during the beginning of creation. And interestingly enough, and I've said it before, if you read Genesis of the Bible, you will discover, which many people don't even take into consideration, that there was quite a long time that passed from the time that God created light to the time God created the sun and the moon. And the earth lived and had grasses growing and fish in the sea and so on with this great light that God created before he even created the sun and the moon. So it's obvious the realm can operate just fine with that great light versus the sun and the moon to make days and nights. So apparently it was always light prior to the sun and the moon's creation. Does that make sense to you, Lawrence?
Yeah, well, when you start looking at the chapter, the thing that puzzles me is when they talk about separating the waters above from the waters below the firmament. So if there was a firmament between the waters, the two sets of waters, then they would already be separated. So it doesn't make sense grammatically. You know, if I've got some water and I put a firm surface between the water, then those two things are separated. So how can you divide something that's already been divided by a firmament? It doesn't make sense. Unless the word firmament means something else.
Well,
firm
and there you
means
go.
solid. Yeah, meant.
Firmament is a man-made word, is it not? I mean, it's a translation from rakia, so it's an English word for a biblical word, Hebrew word, I guess.
Well, the way I see it is that it was all water, and the waters were separated, and they put a firmament there to divide them. And prior to that, there wasn't a firmament. Otherwise, they wouldn't need to separate them because they would have already been separated by the firmament.
Right. So
maybe it's in the mind. You know, firmer meaning something more solid than not firm, and meant, you can construe meant to mean mind. So the firmness in the mind, you know, is it real or is it a mental construct?
Exactly. We're still talking to the side of your face, by the way.
Oh, I know, because I've had the melons out. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go back for a second. One of the things Ned was going to talk about, and I hope he's probably rebooting something and will be back, I hope. But he was, you know, trying to get some people together, I guess yesterday, to find the moon, because let me see if I can find my picture that I took of screen capture. Hold on. There we are. Here we go. No, that's not the one. Sorry. Where in the heck did that go? You know what? When you try to get these things all planned out ahead of time, and then you get these shows started and so on, and then you can't find what you were looking for because you got too many windows open and so on. Here we go. This should be the one. Screen share. Okay. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. The whole idea here is, most of the time when we look at this timeanddate.com, the sun might be over here and the moon might be over here or whatever. In this particular case right now, the moon is just almost like right on top of the sun. And so if you live in Australia, the sun would literally be behind the moon. And if you lived in, you know, United States, the moon would partially not be blocking the sun, but they're just so close together. And so suddenly it's like you can't see the moon. And so what happened? Okay. So the idea is people think they get all these things. Ned's back. People think they get all these things and they really don't. And so Ned was trying to do some tracking of the moon and showing where it was coming up and coming down. And last week he was describing that the moon would be 20 degrees coming up and setting in a different location than the week or the days before. So can we hear you now, Ned?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, but you have a really slowed down, something's really, really slowed down, and I think you already froze again, actually. Maybe you can't even hear me. I don't know. Maybe you need to turn your phone off and reboot if that's what you're using. I think you're using a phone. And come back. You there? Or turn your camera off and see if just sound is coming through. No. We lost you, Ned.
What's that? No, okay.
Okay,
Right,
that's better. I don't know.
You can't hear me?
Yes, I can barely hear you.
Yeah. We have bad internet.
So, Lawrence, while Ned messes around there for a second, does this help your idea as well as it does mine that the sun is not actually physically there in our realm, and that it's a projection coming from outside, or it's bouncing off the firmament somewhere, or the magnetism or whatever? Each time we introduce this new information, it just solidifies me going in that direction. What about you?
Yeah, I think all this Nibiru stuff is a red herring, and we are seeing two suns, but generally speaking, the second sun tends to be smaller. I take the view that that second sun that you're seeing is a reflection of the invisible magnetic walls that form the invisible boundaries of the construct that we're in. And why we don't see it all the time, I don't know. But I've seen two suns myself with no explanation.
Lawrence, I'm sorry, but now your sound is all screwed up.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know what's going on. I don't know where it's coming from, whether it's me, you, Ned trying to get in. I don't know, but it's like it's burning up a bunch of bandwidth, and it's not working very well.
I'll go out and come in here one time.
Yeah, I'll try that one more time. Sorry, folks. It's okay. Now Ned's back. We haven't had these kinds of problems for a little while, and it's unfortunate that we are, and I have no idea why. Lawrence is back, so we'll let it settle in a little bit and see if we can hear anybody. So far, I can't hear you, Ned, in case you're talking.
Yeah, so what I was saying before, if you can hear me now, is that...
Yeah, I hear you now.
There's been lots of sightings of two suns, but generally speaking, one of the suns is a fair bit smaller than the other, and I'm just thinking they're reflections off the magnetic walls, invisible walls that form the boundaries of the construct that we're in, and that's what we're seeing. And that would also maybe explain why we're getting, the sun rising not far off north and setting not far off north, when that wouldn't be possible, using conventional, thought process. There's got to be some other explanation for it. So maybe it is a 4D sun or a 5D sun, and that's how it's able to do it.
And it's interesting that nobody seems to really be talking about this. I mean, science isn't talking about it. The weather people aren't talking about it. Nobody talks about the direction the sun rises and the sun sets from a northerly location. Ned's reporting that it's coming in north of him, which it would be, so that only makes sense. But for somebody in Canada, for the sun to be rising and setting north of them, that doesn't make sense, because the sun is supposed to be, its farthest north trek is supposed to be the Tropic of Cancer, which is at what latitude, Lawrence?
It's whatever, it's about 23.5 north, something like that. I mean, somebody could do an experiment by making, some kind of construct with mirrors on it, and actually putting a spotlight on it and seeing what effect the mirrors had as you move the sun across it, and that may be able to simulate what's actually happening here. But it wouldn't be an expensive experiment to do. You just
No,
need four mirrors.
probably wouldn't even cost as much as those melons.
Probably not.
Ned, okay, can we try one more time to see if we hear you?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Can you
can.
hear me?
There's a solid delay though, but go ahead.
Just on that son, what you were saying. Uh,
No, I'm sorry, Ned. We have a terrible connection with you. It's really bad, and I'm hearing weird little echoes and sounds and bleeps and so on. So I don't. Maybe you need to go outside and try like you did last week and see if that connection is better or something. I don't know. Maybe we can hear the birds like we could last week.
Yeah.
Sounded like we were in the tropical jungles of Australia last week. So, okay. So, Lawrence,
Well,
what do
yeah.
you propose that we do or say about some of these things that we're noticing, and how do we get others to cooperate with paying attention to it? And I'm not just talking about flat earthers, I'm talking about people in general need to, I mean, we need to make people aware of these facts and these anomalies, and not just with where the sun's coming up and the fact the moon's missing and such, but things like the fact that if we lived on the ball, we would have this horrible elevation problem. Why is it that flat earthers are not open to continuing to dig into these things? Why, it's not just us, there are more people, but why aren't more people doing that? Are they that satisfied with the circle model and feeling confident that they understand flat earth? I mean, how can they think they understand it?
Yeah, they're confusing curvature with the falling elevation, and they all say, oh, it's so big you wouldn't notice it, but you would notice the slope. That's the thing. But the people who set all the game in place for flat Earth when this really kicked off 18 months ago, they were all on the 8 inches per mile squared. You've still got Eric Debate putting out readings from his book and getting a lot of views, and he's just quoting Robotham, verse by verse, and things from sailors in the 17th century. That's the problem. The problem with most flat earthers is that they have got a ball earth mentality. So you ask a baller.
Why would they rather listen to and quote and regurgitate something from the 1700s when we have such advanced technology today that we can measure and map and communicate instantaneously, except for Ned, across the whole plane and be able to, compare notes and compare what photographs in real time. And I just don't understand. It's part of is it part of the psyop that they've already succeeded so well in dividing up the flat earth community or movement, as you want to call it? And nobody wants to cooperate in digging into the real truth?
I think it's deliberate from the start. The curvature is, or the falling elevation is by far the biggest flat earth proof that there is. And John Le Bon, hi John, if you're watching, mate.
Hi, John Le Bon.
John has gone on the record as saying that he thinks we live on a sphere that does not spin. So John, you're living down under somewhere. You can go on Ned's globe. So John, if you're watching, mate, there we go. You're somewhere down about there, mate. So there we go. You're that spike there. So you're on the underbelly of the earth. I don't know how you're holding on to it. You must have got lots of these mountaineering equipments to dig a hole in the earth for you to actually be there, because it would be impossible. But you actually think you live on a sphere that's not moving, and You know.
Well, how does he hold on without spinning? I mean, isn't the spinning was what causes the gravity, what helps the thing and on the holding and all that? Don't you need the spinning?
Apparently, you don't need spinning for gravity. Gravity is just a made-up thing anyway, isn't it? But
well, of course it is. But I mean, don't all of these theories and ad hoc engineered theories have to be in in unison for the whole concept to work? Isn't that why it works? Is because we needed to add this, and now let's add gravity, and we need spinning, and is the spinning for the seasons, or what was the spinning added for? Is that, I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
This stuff kept getting piled on top of one another. So now he believes we live on a sphere, but it's not spinning.
Yeah. Well, it's because I'll tell you what the reason is that they cannot comprehend the Pac-Man theory or the fourth dimension theory because it's outside their experience in life. It's not something that they can see. But they're all still sticking with these circular maps. But you can sail east to west and get back where you started. If you had to sail east-west on a circular map, you'd just go from one side to the other and you would not go around the world because the lines of latitude form a circle on that. So to actually sail around the world on an aim or a circular map, you wouldn't be going east-west. You'd be going in every which direction to actually go round in a circle, which is a joke. And yet you've got Jeranism still talking about a circular Earth on his latest show, talking about the sun, reverberating off the edges of a circular Earth.
I know.
And I think, you look at Jeranism's show this week, and they deliberately.
Lawrence, I have to be honest. I can't do it anymore. I can't now that It's like once you're not a globe head anymore and you become a flat earther or a flat realmer, which is where I'm at now. I can't even call myself a flat earther hardly anymore. Now I have to say the word realm because it has to include the whole package. It has to, the whole shebang, or the thing doesn't work. And so I can't go and I can't listen to these things anymore with these people repeating the same garbage that I don't believe in anymore. And so, it's very frustrating.
Well, that was the problem. So I listened to the show because somebody sent me the link to it. You've got Jeranism with one theory, Bob with another theory, and this new guy they've got on with a different theory. So 3 different theories. All they've done is muddy the water so you can't see the wood from the trees. And I think that's deliberate. That guy, Bob guy, reckons he's a real clever guy and he's been a pilot. If he can't get his head around a simple concept, which I've shown you tonight, then that guy's not the full shilling. He's not real. He's deliberately muddying the water.
Right.
It's quite simple that if you lived on a sphere, the angles of elevation on the land that we live would be extremely severe, particularly where you live. But they're not acknowledging that.
Ned, I hear birds, so I have to be able to hear you.
I'm just been quiet while you guys do your thing.
Okay, well, now that we can hear you, we actually want to hear you say something. So
yeah, I'll name you. Okay.
Go ahead.
Point at what?
Oh God! The minute you start talking, it starts breaking up, and
muddying the waters.
No. I mean, damn it! I can hear the birds like they're right here in my room, but I can't. Every time you talk, have you tried talking without the headsets on? Just right into. Are you using a phone? I believe it's the headset.
You think?
Yeah. Now I hear you fine.
Right, because I've taken my picture off.
Okay. Do you still have your headset on? No.
Yes, I do. Look,
okay.
Graham, use guys, all of your sun tracking, and anytime somebody
We lost you. We
Phase.
lost you, Ned. We lost you. We get a little bit here and there. It's being quite disruptive with you, regardless of whether you have your camera on or not. So I don't know what's going on with it. It was pretty good last week. So I'm
Yeah.
going to try to send him a message. He may not even be able to hear me. Okay, so sadly,
Yeah,
okay.
we're getting called out as
Yes, we are.
agents with the information we're putting, but what we're explaining is pretty simple to understand and get your head around.
Right.
So they cannot explain. These the ones that are holding onto their circular Earth and the circling sun. They can't answer any of our questions. That make a mockery of that and make it a big joke. They won't even go there. They won't even come on this show to defend their case, and yet they call us disinfo agents. Well,
Right. Well, and
we both work for a living, Laurie.
yeah.
I sell essential oils. You paint pictures, and we're not fucking agents. We just want to get the truth out. And what we talk about, people will latch onto some of it, and then they'll represent that information in a way that is as confusing as possible, or make a joke of it, like Pac-Man. But they can't explain how ships sail east-west and get back where they started, because it ain't going to work on a circular map. So the Pac-Man theory, space loops is a reality, or we live on a ball. And we've already proved that we can't live on a ball because reality tells you that we don't live on a ball. So when people start passing comments on this show saying Pac-Man is a load of crap, then you've got to explain how ships can sail east-west, get back where they started, and don't tell me that they just keep going round and round and round, in every which direction, north, south, east and west, which is what you'd have to do to go all the way around. And navigation would be a complete joke.
Yeah, that's the part that you really have to explain, to have somebody explain is, when I first got involved in Flat Earth, somebody posted a picture of that AE map with what would have been Magellan's circumnavigation of the globe, okay, on this so-called Flat Earth map. And it, jiggy jogged all around this circle and back and forth and down, but it got back. Okay, a little circle that wasn't a circle at all. I mean, really, truly, it went like this, and there were like little arrows to make sure you understood he's still going in the same circle. Okay, and I looked at that and I went, okay, score. They figured out a way to, map his trek around the world. But then the problem is like you said, he would have had to go north, south, east, and west, just jiggy-jag all the way around. Now, let me ask you this. Do you really believe if the map is the AE map, that's how navies navigate and ships carrying cargo back and forth around shipping lanes across the, great seas? Do you believe that they actually go jiggy-jag all, like, go around? No. What about planes? Well, planes, we don't have a problem because, they're in the air and they just can go straight, but they go in a big circle.
Yeah, they'd be constantly on the turn. Everything would be
all the time. They would always have to be veering a little bit left or right all the time. I mean, I got into it nearly a year ago with Truth Theory, whoever he is, lives in Hawaii. And he said, ha, 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 on your circle map, in order to leave from San Francisco to go to Hawaii, you would have to make this huge left turn. And I'm like, at that time, I was with everybody else. I thought, well, this is the map, and how do you get? Then I looked it up and the latitudes and made an answer video to him and everything. And people were like, score, you just showed him up Well, that one wasn't hard because you're just going over water in a plane from Hawaii, from San Francisco to Hawaii. But if we lived on a globe, it's easier than if we lived on the flat Earth map that you guys are all using. Okay, so you have to question. Okay, if these guys are anti-AE map, why? Do you ever bother to go and look at any of the videos that we've made or any of the map workshops that we've done or any of that stuff to see what the hell we're talking about? Or better yet, what do? You do to me what you do to Globers or what Globers do to you, and that is show me your evidence. Give me a link. Prove it. What do you mean you've debunked the flat Earth map? When? Where? Who? And it's like, are you kidding me? You not only want me to spoon feed you the same bitching you've been given to the globe heads for a year and a half. We're not going to spoon feed you, okay? And yet at the same time, your curiosity isn't even a little bit picked to come and see what we're talking about. But then there are those who have watched, and like you said, they just completely poo-poo it, make fun, call us names, make T-shirts, whatever, and nobody gets anywhere. And the most important part of this whole thing is not about my ego, not about Lawrence's ego, and not about your ego, whoever you are listening who think we're crazy, okay? The most important ego is the viewer, the sheeple viewer, when the mainstream media scientists debunk the flat Earth map, the AE map, so horrifically at some point that it's an utter embarrassment, and then we're done. We're never going to get another chance in our lifetimes to get this thing out to the people, to the sheeple. Right, Lawrence?
Yeah, and on the few occasions that flat Earth has reached mainstream, you always get that circular map showing up as what it is, as though that is, the chosen one. It's just Rowbotham's version that they've accepted. I mean, do you really think that you would have been handed all the flat Earth model on a plate? Do you think they'd really tell you what it was like on a plate? No. That's the reason they've got away with the globe for 500 years, is that you can sail east-west and get back where you started, which you can on a globe if we lived on a globe. But we know the globe doesn't work because of the severe slopes that you'll be living on. So that alone eliminates the globe. So we're on a flat surface, with some mountains and other topography in the way which will give undulations, but it's predominantly flat, and the shape can't be round because it doesn't fit any of our observations. And yet these people still hang on to it, and you've got David Weiss still insisting that these conventional wide-nosed jets that aren't designed for supersonic flight, he's still saying all that. He saw one flight that was doing 900 mile an hour. Well, David, that isn't fast enough, mate. They'd have to be doing 1400 mile an hour to do these things. And if you could fly that fast in the southern hemisphere, then presumably you can fly that fast everywhere else.
Well, I mean, we also have people who say, oh, well, I've found this distance from Amsterdam to Los Angeles or whatever, and it works on the flat Earth map. What are you talking about? And you're like, of course, most of them work. Most of these distances work in the northern hemisphere. Okay.
Yeah.
But now let's go back for a second to this sun and moon thing. All right. On that flat Earth map, they call it, how did those people explain that the sun is rising and setting northwest and northeast of locations like Canada? How did they explain how that works when they all know that the most northerly location for the sun to move across Earth is at the Tropic of Cancer. Explain it on your flat Earth map, on your AE map. How does that work?
I don't know. They just won't address the problem of it.
Because you can't use the dome, can you, Lawrence? In this particular case, where these people are the dome, sundogs prove a dome, rainbows prove a dome, thunder proves a dome. That's one I heard yesterday, and I was like, what? Okay. I mean, everybody knows weather happens below the atmosphere. It doesn't happen above it. Okay. So, but if you have this dome over this, okay, and the sun is going around more north than Canada, how does the dome help that? Does the dome come down to a point in the center and come down to the North Pole and come up from there? So you got a toroid dome? Are you willing to go there? Because that sun is either reflecting off of something north, or the light is coming from the north. You have to have it one way or another. Or am I all wet, Lawrence?
Well, what we should do, Laurie, I doubt if anybody will take us up, but all these, headline flat earthers who continue to push this false model, I'll invite you here and now to come on this show and present your case for it, and we will give you our rebuttal, and then you've got to answer that. So here's the offer: come and stop talking about it or prove it.
Yeah, I'm down with that.
Enough. We've done with it. This stuff that you're putting out, the new flat earthers are latching onto it as though it's real, and they're making themselves look silly, because when they get into arguments with Globers, they're made to look stupid. You've got that guy called Five Red Pears, and he's putting videos out every week debunking the false flat earth model. He doesn't come and choose to debunk ours. I've asked him to on his pages, but he doesn't because he can't. So but that's what they do. They'll and of course, if it gets into mainstream, then Neil deGrasse Tyson will make mincemeat out of the flat Earth model. There's just so many holes in it, and then they'll look stupid. But that's their game. They want to hold on to this false model so that.
Well, they're not invested in the model proving out to be true. They're invested in trying to get more and more and more people invested in it. That's the whole point. And when you hear these people constantly remarking that, oh well, hide in plain sight. That's what they did with the UN map. It's hiding in plain sight. Are you really kidding me? Do you really think that one has anything to do with the other? Do you really think that they're sitting back laughing, going, ha 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 ha, we made this awesome map that we put behind Admiral Byrd, and then we made the UN logo out of it, and we got this guy Robotham who promoted it with his brainiac bunch of guys called the Zetetic Society, and we've been implanting it in old museums and everything else. Let's not even go with the Gleason timepiece. Oh, that backs it up too. Okay, looky there. And so people truly believe that they've been hiding in plain sight this AE map and model with the circling and the dome, and I mean, it only works with the dome. I mean, it can't work any other way. Not that anybody's explained to me. So where did people get that idea? I can tell you where I heard it first. Who'd you hear it from first, Lawrence? That the UN map and the AE map, the official maps of the USGS and so on and so forth, and hiding in plain sight. Who did you hear that from?
Well, it was on all the. When I first came into it, the two main proponents of flat Earth were Rory Cooper and J. Henning Kalogia, and I did have a look at the Flat Earth Society Facebook page, and they'd all got this stuff on there. And Rory Cooper, my perspective, who's well respected in flat Earth, he's still hanging on to his circular map. I mean, that guy's a clever guy, but he's still pushing the disinfo. So it begs the question: is he genuine? I don't think he is. That's what we're up against, Laurie. There's me and you, and a handful of others who are not as vocal as us, against everybody else who puts out regular shows, and they're all either avoiding the issue altogether or continuing to muddy the waters or push out the disinfo.
What they're saying, Lawrence, and they say it to me in comments, because I'm the kind of person that when I see disinfo, I call it out and I say, do you realize that this AE map, this model that you're using has been debunked? Well, people know it doesn't really work perfectly, but that's not the point. It's an icon. We use it as an icon for the flat Earth community because we need some, unity, and that AE map is a unifying, icon for the community. We don't care if it really works or not, or whether it represents the flat Earth or not. I mean, they'll say that directly to me. It doesn't matter. Why are you stirring up so much shit? Why don't you just leave it alone? Because it's not about that. It's not about maps and models and debunking. It's about unity.
It's all about the model, because ultimately, if you're telling somebody new to the subject about the Earth being flat, they want to know how it is. So you've got to describe it or show it or draw it.
Absolutely.
What else is there to talk about? It's the Earth. That's the whole subject, the shape of the Earth. And they don't give a toss about the shape of the Earth. They just want to say, well, it's flat, and the model doesn't really matter as long as it's flat.
Well, and my favorite ones are the ones who still push pictures with this flat pizza pie Earth riding on the back of a turtle with a terrarium dome over the top of it. That's even more favorite, because imagine in a scientific tech world like we live in today, people see that as the flat Earth model and saying, you got to be kidding me. No wonder you guys talk about goats. You're a bunch of goat herders from the hills of Greece in the 3rd century. And so there's people probably listening right now who say, God, you guys go on and on and on about this. And why is that? Why is this so important? Because we're the only ones really talking about it week after week after week. Others have sort of gotten on board, and some people talk about it now and then. Do we care if we get more viewers? You know what's interesting? The amount of viewers, listeners that we get on podcasts that are playbacks of these videos is way more than people who listen to us live and people who go back and watch our shows, because the numbers don't lie. And so what there's plenty of people who are obviously interested to know what we're saying and who are following the message. So like Lawrence said, if you're so sure that we're wrong or that you're right with this AE map and model and your snow globe over the top of it, then come on here and present us your case. Because if you don't and you continue to use it, we have no alternative now that we're very confident that we have debunked your programming, your indoctrinated flat Earth dogma, that we're going to continue to call you disinfo agents, and you can call us disinfo agents all you want. It's water off a duck's back from our perspective. So Ned's here again. Maybe we can hear him this time. Everybody be real quiet.
Are you there, Ned? Can you hear us? No.
Nope.
We can only lip read. Yeah.
In slow
That's the
motion.
problem. Yeah, it's you, me, and a few others against everybody else. But these other people still get a lot of people listening to what they say. That is the problem, because people are buying into it, and somebody new comes into it. Oh yeah, go and check out, Mark Sargent and Jeranism and the like. In my book, these people are there to put out disinfo and lead people down the wrong track, so that should this ever break into mainstream, then the disinfo model will be the one that's presented to Neil deGrasse Tyson to debunking it on primetime TV. Everybody looks a Burke, and flat Earth is dead in the water.
All right, well, let's just play out a little scenario here, Lawrence, for a second, okay? Let's have Neil deGrasse Tyson and Brian Cox invite you and me to come on, and I'm no scientist. Everybody knows that, but I can think, okay? Come on some mainstream show and not really debate, but have a conversation, okay? And they've agreed that they're going to be conversational. They're not going to drop mics and act like, buttheads, okay? Imagine all that. And so they say, well, tell us what your model is. Okay, tell us how the flat Earth works. You got a little circle, and you got a sun and a moon going around in a circle, and you got an ice wall around the outside, and you got a dome over the top. And we say, no, that's not the flat Earth model. We're not positive what the overall model is, but we've got a lot of headway that we've been making on how it could work or how it might work. Because we know it's not a globe. Now, what would be your presentation in the quickest way you could to describe to Neil and Brian how the flat Earth map and model works, Lawrence? And I'm right there, rooting for you while you're saying it.
Well, the map makes it the only map that can mirror reality is the one that mirrors longitude and latitude, which is used, daily and for hundreds of years by navigators. So when you plot those out into a shape, it forms a diamond. So no other map will fit that. It has to be a diamond shaped. Otherwise, longitude and latitude just are a joke, but they're not. Everybody uses them. And when you plot those out, the actual distances across. And join up all the dots, you get a diamond shape. So that is, the construct that we're in is diamond shaped, and you can sail east on that and come back out on the west, and sail west and come back out on the east. So there has to be some kind of, fourth dimension, space loop, call it what you want, Pac-Man model that enables you to do that. And that's what they'll laugh at, because it's beyond most people's comprehension that we could be living in a world like that. But we're all in the same. Virtually every flat earther is in the mindset that this place was created, and it's not for us to say put limitations on how this place was put together in the first place.
Okay, well, let's play like I'm Neil. Okay, yeah. I'm going to be the butthead, and I'm going to say, well, so on that other flat Earth model that we've seen, where everything's a circle and there's an ice ring around the outside and a dome over the top of it, that at least made some sense insofar as the water doesn't run off the sides and the atmosphere doesn't escape your flat realm. And because we know it's not spinning or anything in your model, so how do the ends of the Earth, being a diamond, how does the water not fall off?
Well, that's where the fourth dimension comes in. It's, as free energy puts it himself, it's repeating space. It's the dimension that you cannot see. I mean, the thing with this dimension is I've had a brief look into it this week. And if you can imagine that you're a 3D woman and you're an artist, but when you paint, ignoring the thickness of the paint, you're painting in 2 dimensions. If you was a 4-dimensional woman, you'd be painting in 3 dimensions. Similarly, if you were a 2-dimensional woman, you'd be painting in 1 dimension. So whatever dimension you're in, you're painting in a dimension below the one that you're in. And because the Earth is 4 dimensions or more, we can't see them because we're in 3. We're locked into 3D. So we can see things in 2 dimensions, 1 dimensions, but we can't see anything that's above the dimension we're in. And that's where the problem lies, because if people can't see it, they're not going to get their head around it. Well, not many people are, but that seems the only logical explanation for the things that we see with the sun and, the movement of planes and boats, when they move around the Earth, that they must be passing through these space loops to get back where they start.
Or better yet, to be able to continue forward. Okay.
Yeah.
This is where I would come in, is being able to go that next step and say, reality is manifest as it's being manifest by human. Because it's kind of like if the tree falls in the forest and there's no one there to hear it, does it make a sound? All right. No, the answer is no, because there's no one there to hear it. And so in this flat Earth realm, if I'm in a boat and I'm headed east across this Pacific, I'm headed west across the Pacific Ocean, okay? And I keep going and I keep going, and sooner or later I'm going to hit land, all right? And that's the way it is in the real world. In the flat Earth map that Lawrence has worked up and that I, agree with, you would get to the end of the diamond, the wall's end of the diamond, and you would just keep going because time is with you, okay? And everybody else is doing whatever they're doing, wherever they're doing it, whether they're ahead of you or behind you. But time, being the fourth dimension, is continuing with you. In other words, I'm creating my own realm as I move. And someone sent me a message last week that made a hell of a lot of sense to me. One of the things they're talking about is, in this message, is about global warming and about the Antarctic, okay? And they said, when humans did not occupy the Antarctic, it was smaller than it is now. And that the more humans that occupy the Antarctic that are creating more reality in the Antarctic, and that it's actually expanding, okay? That takes a little bit to wrap your mind around, because we're manifesting reality as we're occupying space, time. And so suddenly there's films and photographs and stories coming out of Antarctica that are like, wow, where'd those mountains come from? And wow, they're in these valleys. And did I see grass? Was that grass they just showed in that video? And, weird rock-shaped things. And, in other words, land and reality that none of us have ever seen it. Does that mean that it was always been there? I'm not sure. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. The farther we go south as humans, the farther we're able to explore, the more we're finding. And so we're pushing our realm out farther as we go. Think about that. Does that make any sense to you?
Yeah, I suppose, you know, that's been something I saw information about before I came into Flat Earth, that, you know, the collective consciousness that we have creates the reality that surrounds us. I suppose there's a lot to be said for that, you know.
Well, why do you think somewhat simultaneous to the Flat Earth movement coming into play about 18 months ago, somehow right about the same time, what else came in that everybody's now talking about? And it's grown and grown and grown. The Mandela effect.
Mandela.
Okay? And people are saying, oh, well, that's CERN, you know, CERN's done that, and we're in a time warp, and you know, people have asked me in messages and questions, when are you guys going to start talking about the Mandela effect? And we'd really like to hear your research on the Mandela effect. Well, you know, what's really interesting about that is my intuition tells me that it is planted. My intuition also tells me that the purpose of it is to create doubt in people's memory. Another reason for it is to create even more division within the truth community, because people outside the truth community haven't even begun to hear about the Mandela effect unless somebody tells them about it, right? And so when you also think about with regards to this effect, I've watched videos where somebody will go through 10 or 15 things that so-and-so says this and so-and-so says that, or I remember this, but this is what it is now. And they'll go through, you know, the classic stuff, Interview with a Vampire, and Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, and Berenstein Bears, and Nobody Doesn't Like Sarah Lee, and then all of a sudden they'll go on to one, and I'm with them. I agree on all of them. Like, yeah, I remember that, and now it's this. And then suddenly they'll come on one, and then I'll go, no, you're wrong about that one. Okay, do you see what I'm saying? All of a sudden now, you're wrong, okay? Or we're in a different plane. We're in a different time warp, timeline, whatever you want to call it. And so the idea behind the Mandela effect is to ruin most people's confidence in their long-term memory. And once it gets to the point where everybody's arguing, no, it was this and no, it was that, and then you've got this third person going, what difference does it make, really? Okay. I have a feeling that some of this effect is being used on people in the Flat Earth community. And at some point, I believe that there will be people who will say, no, the Flat Earth never was this, or no, here's the way the Flat Earth model works, or something to that effect. And so there's already people who are saying this map or this thing from the, you know, Gleason, for example, or the Gall-Peters map. Every time you turn around, all of these little things are changing with little nuances all the time. These maps and these models, that's one of the effects they're playing with us with this Mandela effect. I don't think CERN has anything to do with anything at all, in my opinion. I think it is some kind of a additional, totally different thing, or you know, could go anywhere from it's fear porn to, you know, it's got a totally different purpose. Ned's back. Ned, once again, can we hear you?
Well, anyway,
Big no. Okay.
While I was out on my holidays, I was up in the Lake District, and I just went into a shop to get some groceries, and I always take a look at the news rack to see what's on it, and something caught my attention. Let me just show you this. Give me a second. Share. Okay. So for those of you in America, in the United States, the Radio Times, can you see that now? The Radio Times, you've got Brian Cox here. Front page of the Radio Times. This is the biggest TV guide publication. It says radio because it's been going since the days before television, when all there was in the UK was a radio. So the Radio Times has been going since, you know, best part of 100 years. And you've got Brian Cox on the front page holding a globe and then saying, why is the earth round? So
Right.
this stuff is not going away. It is coming more and more into public attention. And why they're doing that, that is a very interesting question. What do you reckon, Laurie?
Well, you have to ask the question, why in the world would they even still be talking about it? Why would they be talking? Why would Obama be saying we don't have time for meeting the Flat Earth Society? Why would Neil deGrasse Tyson come forward and give a rat's butt what B.O.B. had to say last year, or Tila Tequila? Why would they even need to be discussing whether or not the earth is round or not, okay? Unless the purpose of it was to belittle the flat earth movement or flat earth community people. And the number of flat earth people is growing regardless of all of the brakes they're trying to put on the thing and all the fun they can make of it. At the same time, it's kind of like a slow, steady pace, like, for example, 9/11. The first year that after 9/11 in 2002, I would venture to say if you did a man on the street, microphone interview with people in New York City, you might find a couple of people who would say 9/11 was an inside job. Okay? By 5 years after, you probably had a quarter of the people. Maybe not in New York City because they're a little tougher to sell because it happened there. But across America, for example, you'd have a quarter of the people. By 2010, well over half of the people believed that 9/11 was an inside job or not as reported in the 9/11 Commission report. So Flat Earth has been back in the mainstream truth movement for about a year and a half, all right? In that amount of time, there isn't anyone in the truth community that hasn't heard of it, at least. And there isn't anyone in the truth movement that hasn't done at least a cursory bit of research looking into it, whether depending on who they ran into first, if it was Dubé and his proofs, or if it was the clues, or if it was, Matt Powerland with his extra land, whatever they stumbled upon first, that would make or break whether they gave it a whole lot more time. And so regardless of whether what's being put out there is true, disinfo or true, it's up to each individual person to discover for themselves the true part. That's a tough sell now, because a year and a half ago, somebody like me came in and started digging right off the bat and didn't even remotely just buy into what anybody said. I continued to dig past in the individual sort of gurus, but somebody now that would come into it, they would quickly realize that there's so much disinformation involved that it's just almost a joke trying to get through all of this information and come out clean with, this is what I believe. So Ned, I hear you. I hear birds.
Can you?
Can you talk now?
Oh, I hope I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Can
hear
you?
you now.
Holy crap. Ah,
All
that
right,
is
so
so
tell us
frustrating.
something new real quick before we lose you.
Okay, where's the moon? Come on, guys, where's the moon? It's not on Earth again.
Well, I'll bring it up. You chat a minute for a minute, Nick, and I'll go and find it, and I'll tell you where it is right now.
It's not here. It's not on Earth.
But I'm going to look for it right now.
And this is a big clue, and I don't know. I've got others coming in now that really don't want this, because if you can't see it, it's not there. Where is it? And this is what people need to ask. Where is it? We've got to find something. Listening to you guys this whole time, we've got to find something that polarizes people's minds. Why did the P900 come out when it did? The P900 come out, beautiful timing for them to focus people towards the moon. People are obsessed with the moon. You mention moon, they get obsessed. So we need to be able to polarize them on something, and the moon would be something that we can polarize them on. What? Because I was having a look at the comments on the video from last week, Laurie, and all of a sudden, you know, you mentioned moon and actually something that people can work on, something that they don't know about. They still don't know about. It's got anomalies. There's people who have got question marks in their mind. I'm talking fast because of this signal if it goes out on me. So that's what I think. I truly believe, and like you guys have said, I don't trust any software. None, Lawrence. None. Zero. Zip. I proved yesterday that the apps lie, Solarium lies. That's another level of their lies, so that they can back up this circular sun and moon model. None of those work. It's got to be observation or not at all.
And it has to be good old-fashioned low-tech devices like a compass and a theodolite. That's pretty, I mean, a real one.
Yep.
Okay.
It does, because I'm standing here now, and where I'm looking should be the moon. There's no moon. And it was the US, Europe, and Australia yesterday, no moon.
You should be able to see the moon right now, Ned.
Yes, absolutely. It's travelling right in front of the sun. That's their excuse for not seeing it. But then you've got to factor in what I showed yesterday. That is, for the moon to have moved to be in front of the sun, it would have had to have at least moved 30 degrees on the horizon. 30 degrees north in one night.
Let's move it on 6 hours to see where it is then. I should put it back on your side of this square map. I'll put it back 3 hours. Let's go back an hour at a time, minus an hour. So it's as
now
near
they've got it in front of the moon. They've got it in front of the sun the whole way.
Yep. Yeah, that's what their excuse is for when it disappears. And that's the circular boys as well. That's their excuse. That's bullshit.
Well,
okay, so for those who don't understand why you say that's bullshit, say why that's bullshit.
Well, I'll say it again slowly. About a day before, it was travelling on a trajectory that was 30 degrees at least south of the sun. So they were separate by 30 degrees of the horizon as their trajectory went across the sky. 30 degrees. That's
okay, hold on 1 second. Lawrence, after you get your computer battery charging, which is I'm sure what you're looking for because it says your battery's low, go back 24 hours on time and date and see where the moon is.
Minus a day, okay. There. That was yesterday. Well, that's Sunday, 02:50 hours, so UTC time. So
boy, that thing moved in a lot.
Yeah.
Can you see that, Ned?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Okay, go ahead. What you were talking about.
So, for it to move on that, it's a complete debunk of the circular system, because the moon on any analemma or anything at all it is impossible for it to move in 12 or 24 hours, 30 degrees, 20 at least, even 10, but 20 on the great horizon. It's impossible. It's not with the sun. It can't be. It's not with the sun. That's not the reason at all. And I mean, it's the same as when they said to us, can you feel the Earth spinning at 1,000 miles an hour? Well, no, you can't, and it's not. So it's the same when we look up into the sky and they say, oh, you can't see the moon because the sun's blotting it out. No, it's not. It's not there. It's not there. Where is it?
Okay, well, they're using the excuse that the moon's lit by the sun, which we know it isn't. We know that the moon makes its own light.
But this is even the flat earthers. This is the circular flat earthers.
Okay.
They're saying the same thing.
Oh, they're saying
it's a blatant
you're seeing
lie.
It because the sun's blocking it out. Okay, I get you now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So it's a big lie, and it's as easy to prove as the ball. It's a blatant lie. Because if you can look up in the sky and you cannot see it, then it's not there. It's as simple as that. It's not there. It's in our atmosphere.
All right. So, Lawrence, back to your time and date thing there, okay? Look at the trajectory of the sun across that square flat map. No matter how many days or hours you advance it backwards or forwards.
Yeah, it's staying on the same line.
It's still on the Tropic of Cancer or thereabouts, right? So how are people, take your map back up there. Let me make you present. Okay. How in the world, no, go back to it. I just presented you. Go back to it, please. How are the people in Canada able to see the sun rise and set? The sun's right there. How are people in Canada, way up north, able to see the sun rise and set northeast and northwest from them?
Well, they can't if the sun's just a normal 3D object with no special effects. But you know, it's smoke and mirrors. There is some other effect that enables people to see the sun. You know, what do you mean? It's probably like a hall of mirrors. You know, you can look in there and things on. You know, you can look in the mirror and you can look thin or you can look fat. You know, and you know if there are mirrors or a mirror effect on the edges of this construct, then the sun may be reflecting off that and seen in other places. So, you know, that if we get enough people, you know, reporting these anomalies, then maybe we can put some kind of pattern together to see what's really happening.
Okay. Plug your power in.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, Ned, go ahead.
I think you will find that, and I'm going back because I like looking at Enoch because he's proven himself. To me, he has proven himself unequivocally. That book it's amazing. We can prove it physically today by the moon's movements. So with your sun, what you could do is because the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. So wherever you're seeing that sun come up from is east. That's east. So move your continents to make the map. The sun's showing us. Move the continents to suit what the compasses are observing, what people are observing, and as east. And that's where east will be.
Okay, so is this the reason, this is another verification for why they say 90% of the human population lives in the north?
Probably, yes.
Because everything is farther north than they tell us it is?
Yep.
Okay. I'll try to wrap my mind around that. I don't know. I'm not going to unequivocally say, I buy that quickly, but that's possible.
Everything though, Laurie, haven't they? Everything's a fucking lie.
Yeah.
Tell us that the sun stays within the parameters of the two tropics, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe they've just made that up to fit the globe model. I think you mentioned
Right.
that.
Well, that's the one that I would rather go with, is the fact that the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn are the bullshit, and the sun moves a lot farther north and south than they say it does, and maybe farther north than the Tropic of Cancer, and maybe not quite as far south as the Tropic of Capricorn, and maybe the Tropics of Capricorn and Cancer are bullshit, and they're just made up words and names for something that they created arbitrarily to measure things by.
All I see,
they have to use that as the 23.4 degree tilt for the seasons. So they had to make that work.
We know that's made up, don't we? The 23.4 degrees is pure fiction.
Right.
So why would
and that's the basis for north, and that's the basis for latitude and longitude. I mean latitude anyway, maybe not longitude, but latitude.
Yeah.
Well, personally, I don't think longitude and latitude exist. I think the NWSE on a compass is all bullshit. I think you'll find that if you took the letters off there, you wouldn't consider that anything real to go by. There's only one surface or one energy that's pulling a compass needle. I don't know what name you want to give it, but take the letters off, because everything, like Lawrence just said, everything is a lie. Everything. I think the Capricorn and Cancer lines are your first and your sixth gates, and the sun comes up in the east, goes down in the west. You change the continents to suit what the sun's doing. If it's coming up in the east, swing the continents around and you will get your map. And then you'll have a tetrahedron vortex that's swinging of energy, which is swinging around the flat oblong Earth, and your north will be Mount Hermon in Israel. That'll be the vortex energy.
Okay, so how then, to that person out there listening who says, wait a minute, I have used a compass to find my way from A to B, using a compass in the sun.
Well, that's where we've got
and stars.
Well, the stars are easy, but the compass is the confusing thing, and that's how they do confuse us. And it's all hidden. It's all hidden behind the moon and the sun, because if you were to triangulate, like I was saying to Lawrence last week, if you were able to triangulate the height mixed with people's results coming back accurately off good compasses, all of a sudden you'd have a distance between top and bottom, north and south. I say north and south because that's what everybody sees in their head, but top and bottom. It's the top edge. The top is the top edge and the bottom is the rim. That's what they call it. I know. I've had it spoken to me by agro-occult trolls. And the top is the edge, the bottom is the rim, and then I'll lay your money, each end, east and west, is not ice.
Okay, so did you just say that occult trolls told you those words? Okay.
Yep.
I just want to make sure I heard that right.
Quote
occult
unquote.
Trolls. Well,
that's what they are.
Hey, John LeBon, what do you think about those guys? They're not government agents, are they? They're occult trolls.
Well, that's
I agree with Ned. I mean, there's people out there that know one hell of a lot more than the rest of us. And it's their responsibility to keep it secret.
We've got Ned.
In all honesty.
Hey, Ned, hold on a minute. Lawrence wants to do your experiment on your melon globe.
This melon, Ned, is your globe.
Okay, mate.
Now, whereabouts would you like to live?
Oh, God. I'm trying to think of a smart answer.
Tell me where you'd like me to put the stick. Do you want to live on the top, middle, or bottom?
Oh, give me the top, because that's what I feel like I'm living on.
It's too cold there, mate. You can't live there.
Yeah. There's no ice there. Haven't you looked lately? There's no ice.
There is no ice there. He's exactly right.
Well, it's still cold.
How do you know? You been there? No, I've got it.
Yes, people have been far north. It's cold.
But see, you're using that compass again, Laurie.
No, well, they've been where north is called north, and
Yeah,
it's
better.
cold. Okay.
Yeah, you've been to the edge.
Scotland, it's freezing up there, mate.
That's the edge.
Righto.
What? No, wait. You said no. You didn't. Edge and rim.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead. That's the edge. All right. Go ahead, Lawrence.
So
Lawrence is gonna put you at the north, whether you like it or not
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Right.
That's where I wanted to be.
you could live there, mate, but you'd have to be dressing up warm. It'd be very cold, and it may well be water there, so you'd be living on a boat on the top.
I'm not going to. Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Where you are now, you're somewhere down here at that angle, hanging on by your boot straps.
Yeah.
You know, isn't that the most obvious reason why this ball Earth is a pile of poo? It's just not possible to live on it. And
there's that many.
It's the biggest flat Earth proof there is. And guess what? Eric Dubai's got 200 fucking proofs, and this is one of them, which is the most obvious.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, now that we've discovered this, we have to just keep beating everybody over the head with it, because somebody is either going to come on here and be wrong, or they're not.
There's your angle. That's what you're living on. That sort of slope. If you were on the ball, I've just cut away the top surface so you can see the angle. You know.
Yeah.
And you'd be on that where that Land Rover was trying to climb up that bloody side of a dam. That's where you'd be.
Yep.
For real.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff.
Okay, so let's cohese here and get on the same page. And the page is that we have begun to systematically question everything, not just the flat Earth dogma now, but everything. Because one of the things that we have been sort of proud of around here is that we have been using observations to prove the flat Earth. Then we were using observations to show people why they were able to sell us the globe for so long, because the observations that they were seeing, they were able to fit them on their globe theory, on their globe model. And so that means those observations are real. That means that, you know, you can kid a kidder, but you can't punk a punker. And so we've shown that that whatever happens on the globe also happens on the flat Earth, and vice versa, correct? So now we're seeing that things they've told us that make up the globe are not true. Okay, now we're questioning where the continents even are, and where north is. And the people who believe in the AE map model have north in the center, for crying out loud. Look how far apart we are right there. So how do you justify having north in the center and south everywhere from center? I mean, that's everywhere. Everywhere away from the center is south on the AE map. So how in the world do we get people who have blinders on and have pulled the shades closed on anything other than the AE map with using these same observations?
Well, could you imagine an aeroplane over the North Pole on the AE map, and it's in the middle, and he gets a direction from the air traffic controllers, say, take a bearing south. He'd be saying, well, which fucking bearing do you mean? Everywhere's south. Which way do I go? Everywhere's south. Go anywhere you like, it's all south.
Should I go left south, or should I go right south, or, you know, east southwest? what is it? And there you go. I mean, how can people still buy into this? I just don't understand it at all. I mean, I'm utterly confused. I
have no idea where their directions are on that.
Of this, and especially people like, you know, who I consider seemingly good thinkers, or they seem like they could figure stuff out. But yet they keep making up excuses to cover for why things supposedly work on this AE map. And to the degree of saying, well, that flight doesn't exist. I got on the phone and I tried to book that flight, and I didn't, I couldn't get that flight. That they said it wasn't available. Well, not being available and not existing are two totally different things. That's one thing. But there really are people who take these long haul flights across the real southern, the southern we always knew of, not the southern everywhere from north southern. But they're taking these flights from Santiago to Sydney and from, whatever. Those flights exist, and they do have durations, and they do have mileage, and it is checkable to the degree that it's checkable. It's verifiable. Now, if everybody's lying about everything, then how in the hell does this world work at all?
Yeah, I know. I mean, maybe you could get a consensus among flat earthers as to what information you're allowed to use. I mean, are we allowed to use longitude and latitude? Can you use Google Maps? What can you use? Because all the information that you use to come to any conclusions is the information that's readily available. Short of going out in your own boat and drawing pictures of the land, as you look off the boat to draw a map of the entire world, you're never going to do it. You can only go off the information that's available, and you can only, and for me, the information that you do use is actually used by people in their everyday lives to navigate.
Well, Lawrence, it's like I said that one time, a long time ago, some former show, we were talking about, directions, okay, GPS or otherwise. And somebody is going to come from India to visit me in Florida, okay? And they're going to ask me, do you have directions to your house? And I say, well, I mean, there's general directions to get to Florida, okay? So you get to Florida, which is a very big state. And then once you get to Florida, then I have to give you directions to my house, okay? If there were no GPS, then I would have to give you good old-fashioned map directions. You go this many miles this way, and you go that many miles that way, and you take this road, and you make a left, and blah, blah, and you get to my house, okay? Now, if all I could say is you get to Florida and you figure out how to find Sarasota, and I live there. I live in that town. Hope to see you one day.
Yeah, on the maps.
If there were no better mapping, okay, that's my point. If there were no real mapping, but there is.
The Google Maps do use longitude and latitude, and those lines of longitude and latitude do not curve around to make a fucking circle, do they? They're straight lines from left to right.
And they can get you to within a foot of my door.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't tell me that there isn't some of this data that is usable. Correct? Because it is. I mean, back in the day when you were a little kid and you were driving before GPS and you were on vacation and you were driving in the car and your father is driving and you're in the back seat and he says, well, how much further do we have to go? And I totally remember going like this. About that far, Dad. Okay. That represented a scale on the map that said that was going to be, 52 miles or 500 miles, whatever the scale was. So, we're better than that. We've been that good as far as finding our way around Earth for a very long time. Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's how ridiculous the the round Earth model is, the circular Earth model is that if you were in the southern oceans and you travelled up north, you would get to their North Pole in the middle, and then as soon as you hit the North Pole, you would then be heading south. So north becomes south once you get halfway up.
Okay, Ned, you're back again. What bits of brilliance do you have for us this time? Okay, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question, Ned. In your
Forget everything.
yes, barely, but we hear you. In your moving about on Facebook, for example, because you have several groups and you belong to quite a few groups, what are you finding when you question people about their belief in things like the AE map and model or anything where you question them? What do you find is the resistance or the pushback?
Well, I've got to be honest. I'm tired of this bullshitting around. On all the groups, I've got a good following. I really have. I've got a really good because with my memes, I try and get to a person's mind and their heart, and there's a good following of real flat earthers, but man, there's a lot of shield. I mean, there is a lot of disinformationists out there that just muddy the waters. It's amazing. It really is amazing. But there is a good following of true, honest people that want to know the truth. There really is. But, the truth, and I had a prominent name say to me yesterday, they talk in code, these guys. And he said, yeah, but people really don't want the truth, Sam, Ned. And, well, he's correct. He is correct because honestly, what I've been able to see now is I can see the truth now. I can see the truth of Earth. You tell me, where does the atom come from? If Nikola Tesla is talking about waves and energy, why have we got atoms? Because atoms are the symbology of our cosmology. This is what this is the distance this goes. East is west, west is west, and, east is east and west is west. And up is the top and bottom is the bottom. It's not north, east, west. They've confused us. Everything, Lawrence said it before, everything is a lie, everything. So there is no north and all this sort of thing. So everything is a bloody lie, everything. So our cosmology is hidden in the atom, and the truth, most people have settled down into this beautiful little circular thing, and they've been placated again. And it's a funny word, that placate. That's Plato, placate. It's everyone's calmed down, we've got forever, and they're very happy with their circular model and talking with their friends and waiting for, Patricia Steer or whatever. Yeah, they're just going to sleep again a bit. So it's a little bit frustrating, to be honest with you. It's a little bit frustrating. I produce observations that should spark a person's mind. Like I say earlier, where's the moon? And everyone just, but it's hiding behind the sun. No, it's not. Where is it? Come on. If it's not here, where is it?
Okay, well, let me ask you then. According to you have espoused Enoch's gates. According to Enoch's gates, where is it right now?
Underneath us.
Okay.
There you go. And I mean,
that's what Enoch says happens during this 7-day period when the Earth is.
Well, he doesn't actually say that, but he says it's opposite the throne of heaven.
Okay.
It's opposite. Yeah. What is opposite? So it's got to, and I'll lay you money. There's 2 moons. That's when you start looking at the atom. There's 2 moons and 2 suns, possibly. And positive and negative, they actually balance each other as they go around. But the moon, as I said to you last time, is a pendulum. And that's what it's an amazing construct. It's more amazing than what anybody can imagine. And that's why now this next step, if people are going to go to that next step, they've really got to want the truth.
Oh, well, absolutely. You got to really, really want the truth, and you have to
Yeah.
be willing to do put out some effort. I mean, not only do you have to research, but you have to work yourself constantly to keep your
Yeah.
mind open and
You
to
do.
keep from forming an opinion based on,
Absolutely.
well, the most I know right now is this, so this is my opinion about that. You have to be prepared to change your opinion all the time.
I only make opinion or a judgment as such as I go from what I see. That's all I do. If I don't see it, if I can't observe it, measure it, and repeat it, I don't want to know about it. I don't want anybody's hearsay. I don't want anybody's bullshit. It's got to be in your face. You've got to see it, measure it, and repeat it. Well, I've done that with the moon. Where is it? If it's not on Earth, where is it?
Well, I mean,
somebody needs to answer that.
That's the key to truth anyway. I mean, it not only has to be observable in some way, but it also has to be testable and repeatable.
Well, this is repeatable now. This is the second time I've done this, where the moon's not observable on Earth, and nobody can answer me. This is the second time.
Laurie, Ned, let's talk about the fourth dimension. I've got a very interesting, very short video here. Let's play this short video and have a discussion about it after we've played it.
Does it have music?
No, there's not. No. It's got no copyright rubbish on it. So let me put it on. Because the only 4D video most people have seen is that short one by Carl Sagan.
Oh, Carl Sagan.
Yeah, Carl Sagan. And we used Carl Sagan. I found another one which I found quite interesting. So this is the fourth dimension explained in a few minutes.
Imagine the 2D world, where it's impossible to go up or down. A 3D world implies that there are infinite planes adjacent to this 2D world. A 3D entity can see across a multitude of 2D planes and move up and down with ease. If a 3D entity walked across the 2D world, 2D entities would only see a small 2D cross-section of the 3D entity at any given time. By comparison, imagine our 3D world, where you can move horizontally and vertically, but not in the 4D direction. A 4D world implies that there are infinite 3D spaces adjacent to our 3D world. We can only see one, the one we're in. If you could move 4D plus for a while, and go back 4D minus for the same while, you would end up in the same place. You didn't go up, down, left, right, forward, or backwards. You went across. To make it easier to understand, imagine you went across several 3D rooms similar to yours, but each of them is actually a different 3D space. A 4D entity is able to see across a multitude of 3D spaces and move 4D plus and 4D minus with ease. In our example, a 4D entity could be in your room, sitting in the exact spot you are right now, but in a certain 4D plus distance. This entity can see where you are just by looking across, the same way we look at a 2D paper that is in a certain distance from us. A 4D entity has a body spread across multiple adjacent 3D spaces. If a 4D entity would stop by your room, you would only see a small 3D cross-section of the entity. As the entity walked across your room, the 3D cross-section would keep changing until it completely passes through our space. Imagine a 4D object. Let's say a 3D cross-section of this object is a cube that you can rotate and view all sides. If you walk on a 4D plus direction, you would see that, as you walk, the cube might change its shape. If a 4D entity spins a rich 4D object around, all 3D cross-sections of that object will be affected. 4D entities can see all points of a 3D object at once, just as 3D entities are able to see all the points of a 2D object at once. A 3D entity can think in 2 dimensions. If you imagine a cube, for example, you can only imagine it in 2D, like a picture, even if you imagine it with depth. A 2D entity would be able to see this projection, as long as we make it transparent. By analogy, anything that the 4D entity sees or imagines can be projected into 3D. If we make this projection transparent, we can see an entire 4D object is viewed by 4D entities. That is, only part of the actual 4D object. Imagine that the field of vision of a 3D entity, such as human beings, is a 2D rectangle. Let's say that the moment you look at something, this rectangle is initially empty. Your eyes then scan the entire 3D space in front of you, looking for information to fill up the rectangle. It will first detect objects that are close to you and take 2D snapshots of them, filling up certain areas of the rectangle. Once these areas are filled, no more information can be drawn on them, as there is nothing else between you and the things that were already drawn. Gradually, the entire rectangle will fill up. Imagine, now, that the field of vision of a 4D entity is a 3D cube. This cube is initially empty. When the 4D entity looks across the fourth dimension, its eyes will scan the entire 4D interval in front of it, looking for 3D shapes to fill the cube with. The first 3D information of 4D objects, which are closer in the 4D interval, will fill up certain parts of the cube first, and once this happens, no other shape will be able to occupy those parts. Eventually, the cube will fill up entirely. 3D entities can paint only in 2D. We can take a piece of paper and draw any 2D form we want. However, we cannot draw real 3D shapes that can be rotated using only a pencil. By analogy, 4D entities can paint only in 3D. A 4D entity would draw by pressing a pen-like device against a 4D object, or a 4D canvas. The pen would make visible marks on the 3D spaces adjacent to the first 3D space occupied by the 4D object. It means, once pressure is being applied with a pen-like device, the 4D entity might move its hands through the 3D space, up and down, left and right, forward and backwards to draw on top of the 4D object. Notice that this pressure is being applied across the fourth dimension. The analogy with our world is that when we draw something in a piece of paper, we actually draw above it, on the planes adjacent to it, and not inside the paper, and we are applying a force across the third dimension. It is known that 3D objects generate 2D shadows on 2D surfaces, and that 4D objects generate 3D shadows on 3D perimeters. A 4D device that generates light is able to spread that light not only across the 3D space, but also across the 4D direction.
Lawrence. Can you pause that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. That's pretty mind-blowing stuff, and most people totally would have to watch that 10 times before they would even be able to wrap their minds around it, including me. So right there shows you how laughable our bumbling around trying to figure out how the world works, and including the 4D realm, is. And in comparison, how big of a joke the globe is, how big of a joke the Flat Earth AE circling trilogy is. I mean, it's incredible that, put Ned back in, his birds were making the video when it stopped.
Were they? Sorry.
Well, it's okay. I muted you for the duration of that. But thank you for showing us that, because there are some minds that have embraced letting themselves be free enough to think outside the box, which is truly what that is, 4D. Not only outside the box, but well outside the circle.
Yeah, and so many people talk about all these other dimensions up to whatever the 10th dimension, but when we try to incorporate a fourth dimension into where we actually live, oh no, you can't do that. It's 3D. It's only 3D, and fucking CERN and all this sort of stuff. Oh yeah, but that's just theory, and we're only talking about it. It's not real.
Exactly.
But,
well, that's why I say it was perfectly okay before you were a flat earther to nod and smile and go wahoo when you heard people talking about black holes and quasars and quarks and whatever else words that they were using to blow your mind. So for us to say the sun goes off the side and comes back to the where it was, and somebody never lost sight of it anywhere during that time, that's reality. The sun didn't disappear off the east and off the west and come back in the east like it does on that map.
Didn't it?
Well, what I'm saying, it's possible that it did, but then that puts us inside of a measurable realm, because we do have, going back to the mapping and the distances and the latitude and the longitude and the GPS and the, somebody lives next door to you, okay? The world is seemingly pretty finite. That's one of the reasons why they've been able to sell the globe, because they've created a finite distance around in every direction, right?
Yep.
Well, what do you make of the 4D world then, Ned? Do you think that's likely that that's what one of the issues is, that we can't observe it because it's outside our reality?
I think it's hard. I think because of what Tesla, there's always keys. There's keys to unlock doors, and Tesla's words of everything is wave and energy is a really big pointer, because everything is energy, and outside of the glass ceiling, outside the crystalline sea, is levels of energy, intensity. So then, this is why I say when we get to the east and west, everything's east. I think we've got to come back to being logical a lot of the time, because we get wrapped up in a lot of new agey sort of principles. But east is east, west is west, top is top, bottom is bottom. So at the ends, you've got some sort of construct, is why it says portals. And your Capricorn and your Cancer is gate 1 and gate 6. And that's why I say move the continents to where the sun is east, and you'll find the true configuration of the continents. So then you come through those portals and you're moving into other energies. I read right through Enoch again the other day just to look for any more pointers, and there was quite a few. I've got them on my phone. I want to do up some memes. That it goes through the portals, and there's extra area or land, but it's not as we understand it, which is where your 4D comes in. But inside this realm, 3D, you pinch yourself. It hurts. It hurts. So we're here. Hello, we're here. This is reality. This is what we are. So and outside of our vision, yes, there is other entities, because we only see an inch of about 18 mile of frequency with our eyeballs. Our eyeballs are very hopeless. So, yeah, half and half, Lawrence. I think as you get outside the portals into other energy, this is where we're dealing with other realms. That's where your 4D comes into play. I talk a lot on that.
Well, Larry, what about stargates? These stargates don't appear to be a fourth dimension, do they? They appear to be something else.
That's why I think, this is what I say, when you join all the dots, I'm fortunate because because egomaniacs, which are psychopaths, which are narcissists, which are, I'll say it again, are a lot of our trolls. That's where they get all of their recruits from, the Illuminati advertisers across the internet and pagan festivals. They speak of the rim, and they speak of the edge. I lost my chain of thought then, sorry, Lawrence. What was your question again, please, Lawrence?
It was about what your thoughts were on us being 3D entities living in a fourth dimensional world where...
well, I think we're probably fourth dimensional living in a 3D. We're probably fourth dimensional living in a 3D.
I would agree with that.
We're
fourth dimensional, stuck in a 3D meat suit.
We are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
That's
could go with that. Yeah.
that's what we
Well,
are. But
think about-
outside
think
this
about-
realm is 4.
Sorry, Ned. Think about
You're
this, Lawrence. There's if you believe there are other entities occupying the same place, some of the people, for example, last night I was watching this silly show called UFOs or Aliens Unsealed something on Netflix, and they were talking about, you know, these UFOs and how 1 second they're there and then, I mean, poof, they're gone. And they appear to trip off into some portal somewhere or go into some kind of hyperspeed into hyperspace. I think our realm is pretty much like the Matrix. And I think
Pretty
that
much.
movie was created for the purpose of reducing their bad karma by letting us know
Yes.
some of the things that we're.
Well, we've got this communication going here with this show this week, and there are signals coming into my computer, your computer, Ned's computer, and we can't see any of those,
No.
but they are travelling directly into our computer, and they're in a dimension that we cannot see. What dimension is that?
Cyber.
What is the dimension of radio? Radio waves.
Cyber dimension.
So
Well,
people
dash,
can
dash,
set
dot,
the radio
dot, dash,
wave
dot, dot,
because-
dot.
Well,
Dash.
yeah, they're ones and zeros, and they're radio waves, and they're digital waves, and
It's
you
the
know,
language.
yeah, it's a totally different realm than
So,
what
yeah,
our
but-
3D meat suits can occupy.
we can accept that they're there because we can see the effects of them. The end result is-
Well, that's part of the 4D thing that that the little computer robot guy was just talking about. The waves are going right through you, right through me, right through the ether, and we don't feel them, we don't see them, we don't think we feel them. I mean, obviously.
Oh, you're good on you.
Yeah, but they are affecting us whether we like it or not.
Yep.
And some of these, boy, that bird, that is such a classic bird.
Isn't it beautiful? It is. It's beautiful. I've got a
It
pair
is
of them that
beautiful.
sit there.
I mean, I wish I had a bird like that, you know, sounding, but
We have crows where I am.
it's going to be a little. It's going to be a little comical on the podcast, but
That's all.
How about that? How about that, guys? You think about what you just said. You're talking to me about dot, dot, dash, dash, dot, dot, dash, dash, all this coming through into a computer, all right? Then I was just waiting for a gap. My next point was going to be, will you think for a second on how it's getting there? Think on how it's getting there. And it's all this technology that they brought out with glass. What's it called? Fiber optics. And they're shooting billions of different points of light down the one stream of fiber optic glass, carrying billions of different information on one particular shaft of light amongst millions. They never mix up. They always stay separate. Doesn't that sound like humans?
well, I mean, it sounds pretty trippy when you really break it down like that. Yes.
And then you think about that bird. I'm talking to you in a mic that's sitting right in front of my mouth, and I've got a low frequency voice. Yet that bird is a good 10 meters away. And yet you can...
And that bird, I can hear that bird better than I can hear you.
Yes, because of the frequency.
Right.
Isn't that amazing? You know, this is a story I heard a while back, and it's beautiful. It really is. That in Africa, they done these tests on 2 herds of elephants, and they could never work out why both these herds of elephants would always wind up at the waterhole together. And these elephants were, you know, so let's say 100-mile apart, and they had a mountain range in between them. And they could never work out how the hell both these herds ended up at the waterhole at the same time, all the time. So then they got a spectrometer that could pick up high-pitched sounds. Couldn't hear nothing.
So then what they did is they turned and got this spectrometer, I call it, but it was designed to pick up ultra, ultra, ultra low frequency. And what they found was the two matriarchs of each herd let out a sound that nobody could even possibly get close to hearing, but it would bend. Because it was so low frequency, it was bend over the mountains, and they would actually talk to each other. And they'd give each other a signal when to take the herd to water. That was amazing.
I've heard that story too, and it's phenomenal. It's the same way that the whales and the pods of creatures that live in the water, herd together for
so everything's frequency.
Migration. Yeah.
So everything is frequency, and it goes back to what you were saying with 4D.
We're so arrogant? I'm sorry. Isn't it funny that we're so arrogant that we think that humans are the know-it-alls and the top of everything, and we don't know diddly.
We don't.
Now, do you live in Australia? Do you have any of those big sharks near where you live?
Not where I live now, but I used to fish before.
All right. If you can imagine that there's a holiday beach somewhere in Australia, and all the people are playing out in the surf and paddling around and splashing and running in and out and on their little dinghies, and this great big shark comes in close to where these people are.
Yep.
There would be mass panic, wouldn't they? And people would be running in every which direction. There would be no coordination of the people. They would just panic and go in every which direction to try and get away from the shark.
Yep.
If you were actually paddling in the shallow sea where you get lots of these little tiny fish, when you disturb those fish, they are all moving coordinated in unison, and they just go shoosh, all vanish in harmony. But
do you know what the occult call that?
These fish communicate with their minds, don't they? They must do, to actually move in such in unison.
That's the butterfly effect.
The butterfly effect.
Yep.
Yeah.
What's that then?
You want to go, Laurie? Do you know it?
It's a ripple effect that it happens so quickly. When one starts, it just goes through the entire school.
Yep. It's a butterfly effect, and that's why they like it, because this is what they're doing to us.
They're doing that to us for sure.
Yeah, that's their disinformation. Although a butterfly flaps its wings, and if you were to see the air currents and the vibration coming off the end of its wings, it's almost never ending. As long as by the time it reaches the next butterfly, it gives a flap, and that's what they do. Disinformation is just a flap of a butterfly effect. Right. They put out a little bit, and then it just travels until it's just about exhausted. Then they do it again, and they just keep. That's what they do to play with our minds, and that's frequency.
Well, that's absolutely true. And on top of that, repetition of disinformation is as good as truth once it comes out the other end. Because if you have enough people repeating the same thing, that's how mythology started.
I've got to be careful of my delay. That's all. I think that they've done a wonderful job. They have done a wonderful job. If you had this sort of organisation that they have at trying to disinformation, they have done a wonderful job. They really have.
Yeah, because you add up all of the disinformation. It's not just one bit here or there. It's the entirety of the flat Earth theory as stated by your average flat earther.
Yep.
You ask them, explain to me. It's been a long time since I've asked anyone, could you tell me what the flat Earth is about? I mean, as if I were a freshman, and I came into the flat Earth and was researching and investigating. I mean, I'm like an old codger compared to some of these people that are just getting started. So, well, I'm kind of an old codger in general, right, Lawrence? But the whole idea is that if those of us go back and revisit some of the old codgers and say, could you explain to me what flat Earth means to you? You know, what is the flat Earth theory? And just listen with new ears and say, you know, ask them to explain it. Oh my God, I'm afraid of what I would hear.
Yeah, same.
Because I know how bad the pushback is now.
Yeah.
When I say something to somebody like, oh, you know, that was a really good video until they did that AE map part, and that just sort of ruined it for me, and now I can't share it because it has that in there. And they're like, are you kidding? You know, what is wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with that. That's just the general, you know, flat Earth story. Icon.
Yeah, I've got that.
So Ned.
Yes, mate.
What do you think? What do you envision happening over the next 6 months with regards to these ideas of breaking this mythology and this dogma of flat Earth? Because people humans just need a reality to replace another reality with. So they've replaced the globe with this AE thing. Now what are they going to replace it with?
That's where I done this meme that, you know, isn't it amazing that moonwalk of Michael Jackson's? You know, as I went through all of this, and here is this bloke doing a moonwalk, going backwards, looking like he's going forwards. And that's another thing where they're rubbing our face in it. What do I see? I don't know. I'm sort of a little bit fearful, to be honest with you. I see that people are so indoctrinated again. They know our mind. They know how humans work. They've indoctrinated the mass truth movement again of flat Earth. It's amazing. It is. So I don't know, Laurie. I've got my own opinions, but they're probably a little bit too heavy for a lot of people. I think that my job or my endeavour has always been to understand how this thing works. Well, I sort of know now, and I know the shape of it. What goes on from here is only, I guess, real truth seekers are going to find. If you want truth, you've got to really go out on a limb. You know, there was a movie done by Shirley MacLaine all those years ago called If You Want to Get to the Fruit of a Tree, You've Got to Go Out on a Limb. And you've got to, when you go to this, you've got to actually let go. You've got to let go of all your preconceived notions. You've got to let go of everything and build the construct from reality, from what you see and observe. So what's coming is quite a lot, and I think they've done their job. They've managed to placate the truth movement and confuse it, and we, you know, haven't got to the truth. Yeah, and that's what their goal. That was their goal. They knew they couldn't win. They were only buying time. That's all they were doing, is buying time.
There's a lot of lazy flat earthers out there. I'm just going to show you.
There is.
Share with you so you can see what I'm up against, because these are the sort of comments I've got. So I'll just show you this.
Yeah.
For me, entire screen, share, and then it's on the right-hand side of this screen. So this was a video put out by somebody called You Are Brainwashed. I don't know whether you've heard of him.
No.
He put out this video called The Flat Earth Gatekeepers, and I put a comment saying, you are forgetting the gatekeepers who push circular flat Earth maps, which have been thoroughly debunked. As things stand, you are one of these gatekeepers. You Are Brainwashed has put out lots of videos with the fucking circling maps with the circling sun. And then I got this comment back here from the Flat Earth Reality. Now this guy, I think he's a guy called Chris, or somebody else who does that show, and he's the guy who had Event Skeptic on, who's disappeared suddenly and doesn't want to come on our show after twice saying he wants to come on. So I don't know what was going on there. And he said, your model doesn't work, Lawrence. Sunrise and sunset positions are greater than 180 degrees for me right now. The sun arcs above us. Maybe you are the gatekeeper. Disinfo leading away from the truth. It might not look like the AE map, but the sun and moon circle above us. My friend who receives almost 24-hour sunlight right now, and he's farther away from the tropics of Cancer than I am. There are no Pac-Man portals. That is fanciful and from your mind. There is no observable evidence to support it at all. In fact, the evidence we already have discounts your theory. If other people out there in the world start thinking that most or all flat earthers believe your Pac-Man model, then you are the operation. So I replied, I agree, we all have a problem with the sun being seen at sunrise and sunset from places that conventional science would say is not possible. There are several possible reasons why this is. If you watch my weekly show with Laurie Freire, you'll be now aware that these circular maps with a circling sun is disinfo planted into the flat earth community. It simply does not mirror reality. You may poke fun at the Pac-Man Earth. This is the main reason why they got away with the globe for so long, because you can sail east or west and return to your starting point. And any fool will tell you that sailing in a circle on the fake AE map is not sailing east or west, but sailing in every direction. If you were a three-dimensional being living on a four-dimensional Earth, then Pac-Man does work, but you'll be unable to see it. And then we get no reply to that because they can't. You know, they'll just come back and start attacking me, the messenger, rather than the message that I gave them. So this is what you're getting, and these are the shows that are putting out shows every week who don't really look at this stuff or don't even try and get their heads around it. They've settled for the Robotham model, and they're going to stick with it now. They won't want to look at anything else because it's too much trouble.
I've studied psychology and had a very good life where I really do understand psychology, and I understand narcissism, and when they speak, they tell you without them knowing what they're saying. When they're lying, they're actually telling the truth, but you've got to know what you're listening for. For them to instantly jump to this Pac-Man and portals, that's the truth. That is the truth. Otherwise, why jump to it?
Well, it was the most disruptive thing that we ever did a show about, was even saying the word because Pac-Man.
It's true.
Because there was no other word that we could use to describe the effect that we were talking about.
It's truth. Guaranteed. It's the truth. You got portals because otherwise they wouldn't go to it. What was the movie all about? They were setting it up to use. They're ahead of us by a long way. And yeah, for them to say that, that's the truth.
You know, if portals are in Enoch, why do they have such a big problem with us having a portal effect on the model that we think is the most likely, that mirrors reality? Why are these other flat earthers having a problem with portals?
Because the Book of Enoch has been ridiculed from the day dot. That Book of Enoch is kryptonite to Superman. They have tried to get rid of that book off the face of Earth. That is the one thing that they've tried to get rid of and haven't succeeded. It was hidden in that Ethiopian Bible.
I know, and that guy called Zen Garcia, he put a video out about a week talking about Enoch, and he was back engineering everything to fit the round circular Earth.
Yes. How many videos are out there of Enoch and his portals? And it's bullshit. They're making the circular map fit him.
Exactly the same. Back engineering everything to fit this circular Earth with a fucking cheese cake dish over the bloody top of it.
Yep, exactly.
Wait, go ahead, Lawrence. Call it what Skiba calls it. Yahweh's terrarium.
Why has Rob Skiba done that? He was paid to do it. That's his job to do it. Whether he was paid to do it or not, he's doing it on the basis of no proof.
Yes. And he completely warped Enoch. Enoch doesn't say any of that. The portals, but then they're not. I can read Enoch anytime you like. Anybody can read it slowly, and then compare it to what they're giving you, and that doesn't match.
Is there anybody we haven't called out tonight, Laurie? Yet? Who you know
what? I mean, really, that's the other thing that we get a lot of crap about. And you know what? Again, I have to say, for the 89th time, I don't care. because the
pass
whole
Karen.
idea about disinfo agents and gatekeepers, some of these people, this is what's really sad. Some of these people, most of these people actually don't even know they are gatekeepers.
Not now, they don't.
How mentally controlled they are with what they're saying and what they're putting out there. And,
Yep.
you know, they can laugh all they want to when I say they're controlled. Well, you're controlled. No, you're a controller. You're a shell. You're a shell. Okay? The bottom line is this. One of the things that disassociates someone from being a shill, being a controlled person, is someone who literally speaks from the heart. No preparation, no.
And you can hear it.
No notes, no nothing. Okay, you don't sound like you know what you're talking about. You're just real. You're just being real. Okay.
Yep.
These people who these smooth talkers who come up with these. I mean, Rob Skiba just did that whole going across Lake Michigan to see about whether Chicago was a mirage or not. Well, everybody in the flat earth already knew that that was not a mirage. Okay?
Do you know why he did that? Do you know why he did that?
Well, I think I know, but go ahead. You say.
He's doing that because of what we're doing. He's done that to put himself back at the top of the heap, so people will take more seriously what he's saying. This moon thing that I've talked about and the sun thing that you guys are talking about, this is bad. This is real bad. For that
this is stuff they don't want out there.
No.
They didn't want that map. They didn't want that AE map destroyed. Okay,
Nope.
That was the first thing. They don't want Robotham's crap destroyed. That's the second thing. And the sun and moon, all they want you to do is look up. They don't want you to look out at the horizon. They don't want you to follow the path. They only want you to get that best picture ever of the moon. That picture zoomed in so good with that P900 that you can see where they left a gum wrapper laying there or whatever, or footprint.
Who gives a shit?
But Skiba, I mean, you know what? God love the guy. I've had enough head battling things with him over the last year and a half that it's laughable. I mean, he used to be a member of my group, and he would come in and post his Yahweh's Terrarium crap in there, and I would call him out every single time, and he would treat me like a globe troll in my own group, try to make me look like I'm a globe troll in my own group, which is laughable. But at the end of that video that he did, going to Chicago, you know, going out across the water, I swear to God, it was like the Great American Explorer with him and his, explorer-looking shirt and his cameras and everything in front of him, all, you know, looking very official and everything. And then the credits as if he had just won both an Academy Award and a Nobel Peace Prize. Okay? With thank you to Yahweh, and thank you to everybody, and Matt Powerland, and Eric Dubay, and Mark Sargent, and my mom, and everything else. I mean, dude, you took a trip across the freaking lake. You do it every damn day, okay? And everybody already knew that wasn't a mirage, and anybody who didn't already think it wasn't a mirage could care less about your little experiment. But you know what? That's great. In and of itself, it was a nice little experiment, okay? But then you're going to turn around and you're going to go right back to your dome and your terrarium and your circle Earth, and you're explaining of the Gleason map and how equidistant means this, and you know, it's a timepiece, dude. Get over it. Whether you want to do a 2-hour-long video or not, it's still listed, patented as a timekeeping device. Stuff like this is what pisses me off, because the guy is going to get 50,000 views on some, or 100,000 views on some video, and get more subs and followers, and it's just going to turn into more circle jerk earthers.
Well, at the end of the day, Laurie, all we can do, and any of us that are really on to the hunt for truth, is just do that. I do believe in a creator to all of this, and he will lead people to us if he's going to. We can't control what people are doing, and I get sad. I get sad.
If Bob Skiba was being honest, and he goes to do that Chicago, sailing trip, what he should have been saying was, if we really lived on the globe, this sea, this piece of water, this stretch of water, should be sloping up or down at an angle of 48 degrees, because that's how it is on the globe. But
that's true, Lawrence.
He's still going with the original curvature, saying it should be, a few hundred feet or whatever, hidden over the bump, which is crazy. It should be a water going away from you at that sort of angle. You just couldn't miss it,
Yeah, well, see, and that's how you do a double back on one of these proofs, is the subliminal story behind that proof is that there's no mirage, and that the line of convergence, which I couldn't even listen to the whole thing. I didn't have time. It wasn't that it was terrible or anything, but I skipped through it. The line of convergence, which is what creates that so-called hump that everything beyond it seems to sink behind, instead of talking about that, and instead of talking about how that's a lake and that's not an ocean, and there is no tide, and what would create a hump on that lake anyway? You know what I'm saying? There's lots of other points that it could have been made about that, and they spent all that time and money and effort and everything else just to prove that it isn't a mirage to the flat Earth community, because nobody else is going to watch that thing.
Can I say something for anybody that's listening?
Sure.
I want people to think for themselves. Yes, I've mentioned the moon. Where is it? Yes, of course, please find it for us. But the other thing is, isn't it incredible the timing of the P900 coming out? Isn't it incredible?
Amazing piece of equipment.
And all of a sudden you've got these couple of flat earthers that have a P900 and everything that they can go with it, and they're focusing on the moon. Isn't that an incredible coincidence?
Well,
That's
I did
no
see
coincidence.
one where they focused on the sunrise. That's that longest distance from here to there, across the Alps, blah, blah. There have been a few people that have used it to go across terrain. It isn't quite as effective across terrain.
But they're not doing what you guys have been doing with the sun. They're not doing that. They're not recording where it's coming up, where it's going down. They're not doing the data. All they're doing is, and I actually like it because it's in response to you guys. It's in response to you guys and your son and what you've been doing. That's what that's in response to. I'm copping it now with the moon as well. But because one of them is actually saying, I'm going to focus now and I'm going to get time lapse and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that and I'm going to do this.
I hope they don't turn into a Tiger Dan over it, because that's exactly what happened to Tiger Dan. Lawrence challenged him to make a map that represented the known data on Earth from between airports and distances and times of flight times and so on and so forth. And before you know it, he's cursing the flat Earth like we're a bunch of morons.
No, we're no morons.
Well, okay, so end of the story is this, okay? And we're over our 3 hours, so we probably should wrap it up. But I'm sorry that we had so much trouble with you coming on, Ned, and
so am I.
Hopefully you'll be back, because you didn't get much time to talk. But let's do some closing thoughts. And let me start with you, Ned. What would you
All
like
right.
people to focus on coming out
Well, I
of this
thank you.
show?
I thank you guys, and I am really sorry for my internet connection here. It is a shocker. But anyway, my closing thoughts is I am proud to have come on this show with you guys, because it's so nice to actually talk to real truthers, people that want to know the truth. So I thank you. I thank you very much. I'm proud to be associated. The one thing that I'd like people to do is use their common sense. You don't need hairy fairy thoughts, just common sense. If the moon's not there, where is it? Watch its trajectory. The truth is there, it's looking at us, and we need to just observe. We need to open our eyes and just observe. Listen to people, pick the liars, because they're everywhere. And listen to truth, listen to heart. Like you said before, Laurie, it's paramount. You can hear truth. You can hear it coming from somebody's mouth through their heart, and they will speak what they feel. So that's about it. Just watch the moon. If it's not here, where is it?
Thanks, Ned.
My pleasure.
Appreciate you spending time with us.
Oh, I love it.
Lawrence, what do you got?
Well, I think now we have the biggest proof that the Earth is flat, because if you were living on a globe, there's Laurie's flat Earth melon. Yeah, the only place you could live in the places that we actually live, at those latitudes, is a cave cut into the surface of the Earth where you could actually stand upright. Anything else, you're going to be falling over. You know, you'd have to be a goat, and even then the goats would struggle. You know, this is the only way you could live on a ball, and nobody talks about it apart from us.
No.
Well, thank you for that, actually, Lawrence, because in most people's world, you have to be able to have a visualization of something before you can truly understand what it is they're trying to wrap their mind around. So thank you for going to the trouble once again to create a visual for us to think about. And
Takes time, though, doesn't it?
before you out there in viewer land or listening land poo-poo it, please try to wrap your mind around, if you lived on a globe, this is what it would be like. Nobody's saying that it would be like that right now if you walked out the door, okay, because we're on a flat surface. But if you did live on the globe that they purport, and this is for people who are already flat earthers, and don't think of it as some kind of crazy talk that you would have to tell a glober and try to explain it to them. Just show them, okay? And let them try to wrap their mind around it. Get yourself a melon or ball of some kind, something you can hack a hole into like Lawrence did, or hack the top and the top half quarter off. Make your own experiment and show it to yourself. And you know, come back next week and we'll have some more fun flat earth facts for you. And thank you for joining.
One last thing, Laurie. Okay. I mean, the first video I did, which they didn't show because I was wandering around with a microphone, a bit of it got filmed, but we lost it. But I had a woman coming up, and I'd got all my little soldiers who believed the Earth was a sphere. And I says, well, here's the globe, and here's your little soldiers. Prove to me that, you know, everybody can stand upright wherever they are, because that is our reality. And she couldn't do it. And that's what I do with the likes of 5 red pears, Mr. Pears. You know, you cannot prove to me that man can stand up everywhere, which is reality on the Earth that we live on. It is impossible on one of these shapes. You just cannot do it.
Right.
End of story. You know, experiments are not required.
Thanks, Lawrence. Thanks, Ned. See you guys next week. Love y'all. Bye.